mums ir arī skatītāji tiešsaistē. Prieks visiem, kas ir atraduši laiku veltīt tik nozīmīgai tēmai savu dienu. Un vispirms laikam sveiciens visiem Starptautiskajā Brīvprātīgo dienā. Mani sauc Inese Vaivare. Es esmu pati bijusi brīvprātīgā vairākos krīzes piegājienos, ja tā varētu teikt. Un man ir tāda ekskluzīva dāvana šajā dienā arī iztaujāt visus runātājus. Es ceru, ka arī jūs uzdosiet jautājumus kolēģiem, kuri ir ieradušies no citām valstīm, kolēģiem, kuri ir guvuši pieredzi tepat Latvijā, lai mums tas pasākums būtu nevis konference, bet varbūt tāda rosīga darbošanās. Un mums šeit klātesoši ir, kā jau es minēju, arī viesi no Islandes, Norvēģijas un Somijas. Būs arī vairākas video uzrunas un arī tāda aktīvāka darbošanās, bet par to visu pēc kārtas. Un pirmajai vārdu es vēlos dot mūsu ministru prezidentei, kura ir sagatavojusi video uzrunu.
Organizāciju pārstāvi. Sveicu jūs Starptautiskajā Brīvprātīgo dienā. Paldies visiem, kuri velta savu laiku un enerģiju, lai papildu saviem ikdienas darbiem palīdzētu līdzcilvēkiem, kuriem tas īpaši nepieciešams. Priecājos, ka brīvprātīgie Latvijā darbojas ļoti dažādos virzienos, sākot no darba ar bērniem un jauniešiem, līdz pat atbalstam bēgļiem, palīdzībai veselības un sociālajā jomā, sportā, kultūrā un daudzās citās nozarēs. Jūsu ziedotais laiks un enerģija ir nenovērtējama un izsaku visdziļāko pateicību gan tiem, kur šodien tiek īpaši godināti, gan arī visiem pārējiem. Arī politiskajā līmenī mēs redzam un augstu novērtējam brīvprātīgo aktīvu darbošanos. Jūsu klātbūtne ir pierādījums tam, ka kopā mēs palīdzot viens otram varam izdarīt daudz vairāk. Ukrainas karā brīvprātīgi ir bijuši nenovērtējams atbalsts. Jūs palīdzat valstī un sabiedrībai tik galā situācijās, kad nepieciešama ātra palīdzība. Tieši jūs, nevaldības organizācijas un brīvprātīgie spējat ātri reaģēt uz krīzēm un satricinājumiem. Novēlu organizācijām turpināt būt atvērtām un uzņemt arvien jaunus brīvprātīgos, jo katrs no viņiem palīdz Latvijas sabiedrībai augt un attīstīties.
Aplausus droši vien kāds nodos, vai ne, ministru prezidentei? Jāsaka, ka Latvija tiešām šobrīd ir tādā labā situācijā, kad gan politiskie, gan ierēdniecības spēki ir atvēruši mums durvis, lai mēs varētu veidot šos te mehānismus brīvprātīgo iesaistē krīzēs. Jo šodien mēs nerunāsim par brīvprātīgajiem visās iespējamās jomās, bet tieši par krīzēm. Un kā nākamais runātājs ir Reinis Uzulnieks, kurš ir Labklājības ministrijas parlamentārais sekretārs, kuri gan atbild par visu brīvprātīgo darbu, vai ne?
Jā, labrīt visiem brīvprātīgajiem organizācijām, draugiem un atbalstītājiem. Kā jau minēju, tiešām ir vēsturisks brīdis, jo, kad es pirmoreiz biju parlamentārais sekretārs 2014. gadā, tad mēs kopā ar Intu Taurovski uztaisījām brīvprātīgā darba likumu, kurš tad stājās arī tajā gadā spēkā. 10 gadi ir pagājuši, bet joprojām viņš mētājās starp ministrijām, starp iestādēm, kas tad būs tā atbildīgā iestāde, kas būs šīs te brīvprātīgā darba politikas veidotāji. Un tad pēc garām diskusijām, un man arī personīgi brīvprātīgais darbs ir svarīgs, mēs vienojāmies, ka brīvprātīgā darba politikas veidotāji būs labklājības ministrija. Līdz ar to arī tas likumā ir nostiprināts, un turpinot šo te vēsturisko brīdi, jau pagājuši mēnesi notika manā vadībā pirmā brīvprātīgā darba konsultatīvās padomas sēde, kurā bija 6 cilvēki no valstiskā sektora, 6 cilvēki no nevalstiskā sektora, un kas bija pats labākais, acis dega visiem, ka tas ir svarīgi, ka tas ir nepieciešams, jo, kā mēs zinām, dziesmu svētki, sporta un kultūras pasākumi nebūtu iespējami bez brīvprātīgā veicēja iesaistes un arī organizācijām. Zīmīgi, ka mēs šodien runājam tieši šeit par drošību, un paldies Latvijas Pilsoniskā aliansē par aktīvu iesaisti, jo arī drošība, it īpaši šajos kara apstākļos, ļoti svarīga un tieši zīmīgi, ka tas notiek tieši šeit, tava drauga angārā, kur tiek ļoti daudz palīdzēts cilvēkiem no Ukrainas. Un tas ir svarīgi, arī brīvprātīgie nesautīgi, neprasot par to atlīdzību, ziedojot savu laiku, palīdz cilvēkiem, kam tas vairāk ir nepieciešams. Gribu arī pateikt arī drošības kontekstā paldies arī mūsu brīvprātīgajiem ugunsdzēsējiem, iekšlietu sistēmām, ja ir mums pazudis kāds cilvēks, nesautīgi brīvprātīgi iesaistās, un tas viss ir drošības jautājums. Tā kā šī tēma tiešām paldies organizatoriem ir ļoti aktuāla un svarīga, un tiešām paldies visiem brīvprātīgajiem organizācijām, darba veicējiem par to, ko jūs dariet, un tiekamies svētdien Mežparkā Kokar zālē, 1:00, kur notiks brīvprātīgā darba godināšana. Paldies jums!
Liels paldies. Nav jau bieži, kad politiķi ir tik sparīgi, vai ne, par NVO lietām. Liels paldies Reinim, un te ir arī Ints, varbūt var pamāt, Ints tik pieminēts, pirms 10 gadiem, vai ne, jau sāka bīdīt lietas. Aha, tie, kas ir tiešraidē, tie neredz, ko viņš parādīja. Pieklājīgi. Cerēja viņš, ka būs ātrāk. Un tika pieminēts jau drošības konteksts, un te jāsaka, ir viens tāds arī būtisks spēlētājs, galvenais spēlētājs īstenībā NVO sektorā, Latvijas Pilsoniskā alianse, mūsu nevalstisko organizāciju apvienībā, kura 2022. Gadā stingri pateica, ka NVO ir jāsāk iesaistīties arī krīžu tēmā ar vien vairāk. Un daudz, kas ir padarīts šo 2 gadu laikā, un paldies Kristīnai personīgi un kolēģiem, ar ko ir strādāts kopā. Lūdzu, vārds tev īsai uzrunai.
Sveicināti! Šodien, 5. decembrī, svinam Starptautisko Brīvprātīgo dienu, kas ne tikai atgādina par brīvprātīgā darba nozīmi, bet arī godina cilvēkus, kuri ar savu darbu iemieso solidaritāti, atbildību un labestību. Mēs bieži sakām, ka valsts stiprums slēpjas tās cilvēkos, un brīvprātīgais darbs tam ir spilgts pierādījums. Brīvprātīgais darbs balstās uz katra pašiniciatīvu un nesautīgu vēlmi palīdzēt. Tas spēj veidot ne tikai drošāku, bet arī saliedētāku un noturīgāku sabiedrību. Brīvprātīgie ir tie, kuri veic bieži vien plašākai sabiedrībai neredzamu ieguldījumu mūsu līdzcilvēku labā. Brīvprātīgie ir tie, kas stāv krīžu laikā pirmajās frontes līnijās, vai tie būtu plūdi, pandēmija vai citi neparedzēti notikumi, kur kādam ir nepieciešama palīdzība. Šodien mums būs unikāla iespēja mācīties un iedvesmoties citam no cita. Dzirdēsim pieredzes stāstus no Latvijas brīvprātīgā darba veicējiem. Savukārt viesi no Islandes, Norvēģijas un Somijas dalīsies ar mums stāstos un pieejās, kas palīdzēs mums ar idejām, kā stiprināt brīvprātīgo sistēmu Latvijā. Lai gan katra valsts un katra sabiedrība ir unikāla, mūs vieno kopīgs mērķis veidot saliedētas, atbildīgas un aktīvas kopienas, kurā katrs var dot savu ieguldījumu kopējam labumam. Šodienas pasākums ir vieta, kur mēs tikai klausīsimies un diskutēsim, bet arī pasākums, kur svinam. Svinam brīvprātīgo kustību kā daļu no mūsu dzīves filozofijas un kultūras. Vēlos pateikties organizācijām, koordinatoriem un atbalstītājiem, kā arī pašiem brīvprātīgajiem par jūsu darbu citu labā. Jūsu darbs ir stāsts par cilvēcību, ticību labajam un savstarpējo uzticēšanos, kas ir pamats jebkurai veselīgai sabiedrībai. Manuprāt, šie vārdi arī lieliski raksturo šodienas pasākuma māju vietu, kas ir biedrības Tavi, draugi, angārs, kurā ikdienā nepagurstoši mutuļo brīvprātīgo komanda, lai palīdzētu Ukrainai tās cīņā par brīvību. Un paldies jums par to, ka šodien atvērāt durvis arī mums. Aicinu ikvienu no jums šodien ieklausīties, dalīties un iedvesmoties, jo tikai kopā mēs varam radīt pārmaiņu spēku, lai mums visiem bagātīga, iedvesmojoša un vērtīga diena. Paldies!
Paldies, Kristīnai. Arī paldies, ka tu nosauc visus atbalstītājus un partnerus. Ja? Man atviegloja mazliet darbu. Kristīna jau teica, ka šis nav tāds tikai stāsts par brīvprātīgo darbu. Šis ir stāsts arī par sabiedrības pašorganizēšanos, par kopienu veidošanu un īstenībā ikdienas noturības stiprināšanu. Un daudzi jau te piesauc tavus draugus, kas Latvijā ir viens izcils piemērs, kā maza organizācija kļuva milzīga, arī fiziski, vai ne, angārā milzīgā, palīdzot Ukrainas iedzīvotājiem, jo tajā brīdī piecēlās tie, kas varēja piecelties. Un es gribu aicināt Beāti no taviem draugiem, ar ko esam daudz sadarbojušies, dažādos veidos un formātos, teikt savu mājas mātes uzrunu.
Kā mājas māte tikko pamanīja, ka paklāju nesakārtoju. Pirmkārt jau visiem prieks jūs pie mums satikt. Šis ir tāds īpašs notikums, un jūs esat īpašā vietā, jo tad, kad sākās šis noliktavas stāsts, tad patiesībā pirmās 2 dienas mēs bijām tepat šajā teritorijā tikai apmēram, tādā kvadrāta, tādā tik lielā kastītē. Un nākamās 2 dienas, kad mēs uzrunājām teritorijas īpašniekus, bija tās liktenīgās, kad mēs prasījām, varbūt jums ir mazliet lielāka telpa. Mums iedeva šo milzīgo angāru. Jūs šobrīd sēžat vietā, kur sākās reģistrācija. Šeit bija izvietoti galdi. Mēs paši izdomājām, kāda tad būs tā kārtība, kā mēs te strādāsim un kā mēs, vēl tajā brīdī nezinot, pavadīsim šos turpmākos 3 gadus. Es ļoti, ļoti katru dienu ceru, ka mums uz darbu vairs nebūs jānāk, ka mēs varēsim darīt daudz citas lietas, bet biedrība Tavi draugi ir no mazītiņas angūras biedrības izaugusi par to, ka mēs varam atvērt durvis, lai uzņemtu daudz brīvprātīgos. Šo 3 gandrīz gadu laikā vairāk kā 5000 brīvprātīgo ir bijuši šeit noliktavā un pielikuši savu roku tam, lai tas mūsu darbs iet uz priekšu un lai mēs varētu sniegt to palīdzību. Paldies katram no jums, kas ir bijuši pie mums šeit palīgā. Paldies arī tiem, kas nav bijuši, tagad jūs esat. Es ceru jūs satikt vēl. Pēc tam, kad jums būs šodien beidzies viss, par ko jūs runāsiet, viss, ko jūs darīsiet, es ļoti labprāt jūs izvedīšu ekskursijā pa mūsu noliktavu, parādīšu, pastāstīšu, kā mums te viss notiek. Un paldies par to, ka jūs darāt to, ko jūs darāt. Un Ulvis, diemžēl, šodien nav šeit. Ulvis Novikas biedrības vadītājs. Viņš ir devies darba vizītē uz Briseli, bet es zinu, ka viņam ir tāds viens teikums, ar ko viņš katru reizi, visu laiku, visas uzrunas noslēdz. Paldies par to, ka tu dari to, ko tu dari. Un tas ir tiešām no sirds jums katram. Un es ceru, ka jums pie mums patiks. Ja kaut kas nav tā, kā gribās, nāciet pie manis un droši prasiet, jūtaties kā mājās. Čības arī var vilkt kājās un džemperus, un var sakot, pie mums ir ļoti jauki, ļoti silti, lai jums ir brīnišķīga diena.
Paldies, Beāta. Beāta piesauc Ulvi. Man jau gan patīk, ka runā arī tās sievietes, kuras ir aiz tiem vīriešiem ikdienā. Kā jau īstos svētkos, sveicēju ir vairāk nekā plānots. Arī mums ir vēl kāds apsveicējs, kas ir atsūtījis video sveicienu. Kā ir, Anna? Esam gatavi?
Sveicinu Starptautiskajā Brīvprātīgo dienā. Brīvprātīgais darbs ir pamatā stiprai, noturīgai, demokrātiskai sabiedrībai, un jūs ar savu darbu veidojat pamatus mūsu valsts noturībai, pilsoniskai līdzdalībai un aktīvismam. Mēs nereti runājam par to, ko mēs varētu darīt labāk, bet brīvprātīgie nevis runā, bet dara. Jūs bijāt tie, kas pirmie nāca palīgā, kad Latvijā ieradās pirmie bēgļi no Krievijas izraisītā kara Ukrainā. Jūs esat pirmajās rindās sniedzot atbalstu dziesmu un deju svētku laikā. Jūs pavasarī kopā ar senioriem mazgājat logus un vedat patversmu dzīvniekus pastaigās. Jūs rūpējaties, tiešām ikdienas rūpējaties par sabiedrībā mazaizsargātajām grupām, bet vienlaikus stiprinat sabiedrības noturību, ceļat mūsu pašapziņu un veidojat saliedētāku sabiedrību. Paldies jums par jūsu darbu un atcerieties, ka ir iemesls par sevi lepoties un par savu darbu arī stāstīt plašāk.
Šeit redzu arī kultūras ministrijas padomnieci nevalstisko organizāciju lietās, kas arī noteikti nodos aplausus ministrei. Un es tāds mājiens, ka jūs pauzēs varat, kā saka, arī doties ar saviem prasījumiem dažādiem. Tā kā mums ir ārvalstu viesi, bet subtitri bija ministrei tikai latviešu valodā, es īsi pateikšu, angliski tulki var atpūsties tikmēr. Probably you wonder who was this fantastic lady who was speaking about volunteers. That was our Minister of Culture. And she was giving her greetings and also saying that volunteers support Ukraine. They are first to stand up also to help seniors, homeless animals, and different social vulnerable groups. And she was saying that it's not only about work, but also raising our self-confidence as citizens. Tā. Ļoti labi, bija tējas pauze tulkiem. Tad tālāk pie darba. Ja? Mums ir tādi vairāki bloki šodien paredzēti, un pirmie ir stāsti par brīvprātīgā darba sistēmām un reakcijām krīzēs, gan no Latvijas pārstāves Agnijas Jansonis, gan arī no 3 mūsu viesiem. Un Agnija, vārds tev kā pirmajai, un kamēr Agnija nāk, gribu viņu slavēt. Agnija ir tā, kura mūsu nevalstiskā organizācija sektorā visus mūs stumj un grūž un vienmēr atgādina par brīvprātīgā darba nozīmīgumu. Viņa arī ir pētījusi akadēmiski to, un šodien nāk ar savu vēstījumu, kā tad klājas Latvijā un kāds ir redzējums par tālākiem soļiem. Lūdzu, Agnija.
Labdien! Izstāstīšu spēles laukumu.
Kur gribi tur spēlē?
Kur āna krīca. Mikrofons.
Tas ir vienīgais, jā.
Šitā un tādā.
Tev ir vērtāk runāt šādai, nevis turēt rokās, tad tu vari
Jā. Es gribu uzlikt kaut kur savu stopvaču. Nē, man marā labāk ir. Labi, es uzsvieru kaut kādu. Es runāju, jā, man vienkārši vajag uzlikt. Jūs varat tikmēr iepazīties viens ar otru blakus, ja? 30 sekundžu tehniska pauze. Kā es varu uzlikt? 30, 25, ne? Labrīt, good morning. Šodien es domāju, kā nosaukt šo savu stāstījumu, un es to nosaucu par spēles laukumu, jo pēdējos gados tas ir bijis tiešām spēles laukums, un arī tur, kur mēs šobrīd esam, ir labi saprastos noteikumus. Bet sākumā es visus gribu sveikt Starptautiskajā Brīvprātīgo dienā. Katrs varam izstiept roku uz priekšu, izstiepjam un pastam sev pa plecu. Tā kā tas ir tāds mazs apsveikums pašiem sev par to labo darbu. Good morning, guests, dear guests from North. Thank you for coming. I am super happy to see also players from the previous battlefields and from the youth field, and the people from northern countries are always the ones who showing kind of a direction, like in the compass there's a north, and it's up to us to find our right way. So thank you for showing us the star and the light where to go. But I'll continue in Latvian. Tātad, ja man ir kāds vai kāds man spiedīs? Kāds ir process? Nav kaut kāds? Jā, burvīgi. Tātad šodien stāstīšu par vairākiem punktiem un minēšu tātad mazliet par brīvprātīgu darbu attīstību, mazliet par veidiem, par mazliet par teorijām, tā vērtību un spēlētājiem Latvijā un dažām citām lietām, kā jūs redzat. Ja mēs skatāmies brīvprātīgā darba vēsturi, tā nav sākusies tikai 10 gadus atpakaļ, kad ir pieņemts brīvprātīgā darba likums Latvijā. Mēs varam skatīties, ka brīvprātīgais darbs ir jau sācies būtībā viduslaikos ar atbalstu nabadzīgiem. Un te ir bieži vien bijuši spēlētāji no baznīcām, un tas vienmēr ir bijis uz kopienu attīstību. Tālāk mēs skatāmies nāciju attīstībā uz rūpniecisko apvērsumu, kur sākās urbanizācija, pieauga dažādas sociālās problēmas. Tas ir arī laiks, kad rodas pirmās nevalstiskās organizācijas tādā apmērā, kā mēs to saprotam šodien. Sarkanais krusts, Jaunatnes Kristīgā savienība vai MCA, kā mēs to starptautiski saprotam. Un brīvprātīgais darbs kļūst formālāks. 20. gadsimts ir iezīmējis jau ar kaut kādiem vairāk kara centieniem atbalstīt kopienu un arī ļoti daudz pēc kara atjaunošanas darbi. Un te mēs arī varam sākt skatīties par brīvprātīgā darba ekonomisko vērtību, kur gan brīvprātīgās žēlsirdīgās māsas, viņu darbs bija nenovērtējams gan kara apstākļos, gan palīdzot pēc kara traumētajiem karavīriem, gan arī atjaunošanas darbu ceļot jaunas pilsētas vai atjaunojot pilsētas. Un ja to mēs pārvērstu ekonomiskā vērtībā, tad tas būtu ļoti daudz cipari. Un tad 20. gadsimta beigas, 21. gadsimts, mēs redzam to, kad attīstās jau dažādas vairāk formas, ir brīvprātīgais, tā kā korporatīvās pazīmes nāk iekšā, un tiek skatīts jau arī uz brīvprātīgā darba prasmēm, ko mēs iegūstam, kādas prasmes mēs iegūstam brīvprātīgo darbu veicot. Un mūsdienās mēs varam skatīties to, ka nāk klāt digitalizācija, brīvprātīgais darbs pārsvarā visā rietumpasaulē ir tiesiski regulēts. Tas nav tikai ilgtermiņa kalpošana kādam sev izvēlētam hobijam, bet tas jau ir arī tāds īstermiņa impulsīvs. Un mēs arī varam runāt par sociālo kapitālu, kas tiek pētīts brīvprātīgā darba kontekstā, par ko es arī pieskaršos mazliet vēlāk. Tātad tiesiski Latvijā regulē brīvprātīgā darba likums, 10 gadus jau pastāv, un šogad tika veikta grozījumi, kurā tika beidzot pielikts punkts futbolam, kurš tad būs atbildīgais. Un paldies labklājības ministrijai, kurš šobrīd tur vārtus. Un tas nosaka, ka brīvprātīgam darbam nav peļņas gūšanas elementi, tātad viņš ir bez maksas un viņš ir uz labas gribas pamata bāzēta darbība. Ja mēs skatāmies no pasaules darba organizācijas teorijām, tad mēs varam apstīties dažādas nodarbinātības formas. Es varu arī ar vienu aci šitā, jā, būt labāk. Tad, ja mēs skatāmies visu nodarbinātību, tad viss darbs ir apmaksātā nodarbinātība, ko mēs saprotam ar to darbu, ko mēs ikdienā darām. Tad ir neatmaksāto prakšu darbs, kas arī iet pie nodarbinātības, un tā ir vesela joma, ko arī noteikti Latvijā vajag sakārtot un pētīt. Tad mēs to saprotam brīvprātīgo darbu, un tad ir arī cits lietas. Tas, kur ir pašu labumu, tas ir vairāk tāds, kur mēs palīdzam, kas saka, tas individuālais darbs, tas nav, kur kāds cits iegūst no tā. Šis ir, ka kāds cits iegūst. Un šeit pēc ilgām un garām diskusijām Starptautiskā darba organizācija ir pieņēmusi arī algoritmu, kādā veidā aprēķināt arī ekonomisko vērtību. Ja mēs skatāmies uz brīvprātīgā darba veidiem, tos var klasificēt ļoti dažādos, gan pēc rakstura, gan pēc biežuma, gan pēc iesaistīšanās avota, gan nozares un jomas, gan pēc norises vietas, pēc mēroga. Kopumā es varu tā pateikt, ka ir tiesiski, var fizisks būt darbs, ko mēs darām ar rokām, varbūt intelektuāls, ko mēs palīdzam ar savām zināšanām, Viņš var būt regulārs, ko veic katru nedēļu, piemēram, skauts un gaidas, katru nedēļu vada nodarbības bērniem un jauniešiem. Tas var būt epizodisks, ka mēs nākam, piemēram, 2 mēnešus strādājam un palīdzam taisīt ziemas tīklus, katru arī otrdienu, piemēram, nākam. Tas var būt vienreizējs, es atnāku vienreiz uz lielo talku un sakopju savu vietējo dārzu. Tas var būt formāls, ka es esmu kādā organizācijā, un visbiežāk tad arī analizē tos, jo tur ir kaut kādi dati. Vai tas ir neformāls, kurus pieslēdzos, visbiežāk tas, piemēram, ir talkās, kur diezgan pēc tāda nejaušības principa var pieslēgties. Tātad vēlreiz, tad ir arī cik tu strādā, piemēram, 1 dienu, nedēļu, mēnesi, piemēram, nometnē, tu darbojies tur kādu nedēļu, vai ilgtermiņu, tu esi pastāvīgs brīvprātīgais šeit pat, piemēram, angārā un nāc jau 3. gadu un darbojies. Ir dažādas jomas, un atkarībā no valsts tā var izcelties vairāk, kur brīvprātīgi ir iesaistīti. Ja mēs skatāmies, piemēram, Kanādā, vislielāko jomu no brīvprātīgiem aizņem tie brīvprātīgi, kur iesaistīti ir medicīnas sektorā. Tad, piemēram, Amerikā un Austrālijā ļoti izteikti ir iesaista izglītības jomā. Dažādi mentori, dažādi vecāku padomes un, protams, humanās palīdzības arī joma ir būtiski visur tur, kur ir dažādas gan militāras, gan dabas katastrofas. Tas, kas ir nācis arī pēc Covida, tātad mainās ne tikai klātienē, bet arī tiešsaistē, veids brīvprātīgo darbu. Un tad ir mērogs, varbūt vietējā, nacionālā, starptautiskā, reģionālā. Un tas var būt arī tāds, ko tu dari tikai priekš kaut kādas konkrētas vienas valsts, vai tas var būt priekš vesela reģiona. Piemēram, ir brīvprātīgi, kur darbojas Eiropas līmeņa tīklos. Tad ir auditorija, vecuma grupa, varbūt vai mērķu grupa no dažādiem vecuma grupām. Tie var būt jaunieši, kas Latvijā droši vien visvairāk arī dati un visbiežāk ir pētīti. Ir senioru grupas, ir kā jau minētās, vecāku padomes, ir arī korporatīvais brīvprātīgais darbs biznesa sektorā. Vēl, man liekas, ir ļoti tāds zināms arī brīvprātīgais darbs, ko dara advokāti. Visbiežāk to sauc par pro bono, kur advokātu birojas izvēlas kādu organizāciju vai sociālu situāciju, kur viņi grib palīdzēt. Un ir specializācijas. Tātad ir krīžu brīvprātīgais darbs, kas ir, piemēram, pēc plūdiem, pēc zemestrīcēm un kariem. Ir specializētas lietas, ko tu vari darīt tikai tad, jūs specializējies tajā jomā, kā minēti, piemēram, advokāti. Un korporatīvais brīvprātīgais darbs, viņš kļūst pēdējās 10 gadēs populārāks, kur, piemēram, banka iedod brīvdienu saviem, piemēram, vakar man Svetbanka teica, ka viņi lepojas to, ka viņi ir iedevuši nākamo gadu visiem darbiniekiem 2 brīvdienas, 1 brīvdienu, ko viņi var veikt brīvprātīgo darbu paši pēc izvēles, kā indivīdi, un otru, ko viņi kolektīvi ar savu kolektīvu var veikt. Piemēram, nākot šeit un palīdzot kaut kādas darbiņus angārā. Tad spēlētāji. Ja mēs skatāmies pēc likuma, ir Latvijā ir 4 juridiskās formas, kas tad var būt brīvprātīgā darba organizētāji. Biedrības un nodibinājumi kopā ir 25,000, 17,000 aktīvas, 1,500 rupju rēķinu sabiedriskā labuma status. Un tie tad arī visbiežāk ir arī tas, tad, kuri veic šo brīvprātīgo darbu sabiedrības labumam. Tad ir politiskās partijas, kas arī ir viena no pilsoniskās sabiedrības, viena no brīvprātīgā darba veicējiem. Varbūt šobrīd partijas ir 53, 8 apvienības, 13 ir tādas, kas saņem valsts finansējumu, tie ir 6,5 miljoni, un tur ir iesaistīti 1,3% no Latvijas iedzīvotājiem. Ne visi no viņiem ir brīvprātīgie. Viņi ir vienkārši arī varbūt tikai partijas biedri, bet visbiežāk partijās viņi darbojās uz, kad ir vēlēšanu kampaņas, vai arī līdzīgi kā nevalstiskās organizācijās, nodrošina pašas organizācijas darbību. Tad Latvijā ir sociāli uzņēmumi, kas ir nedaudz virs 200, Imants var labot, kuri arī var veikt brīvprātīgo darbu, jo viņu, neiedziļinošu, tad var būt valsts un pašvaldības iestādes, kā piemēram dziesmu svētki tiek organizēti no valsts puses, dažādi sporta lielie festivāli arī tiek organizēti ar valsts palīdzību. Hokeja čempionāts, tas var būt arī ļoti lokāla mēroga pašdarbības kolektīvs jaunlutriņos, kuri nāk kopā un kop vietējās kultūras un vēstures tradīcijas un dažādi. Ja mēs skatāmies no tādas tiešām tāda cilvēciskā jau izteiksmē, tad Saeima tā, kas pieņem ABCs, vienkārši, lai visi esam uz vienu lauku šodien. Saeima tā, kas tur lemj ilgi par likumu grozījumiem, jā. Tad ir ministru kabinets, ir tas, kurš tad, visbiežāk jau iedos to galveno melnrakstu budžetam, pateiks jā vai nē, vai mums var būt brīvprātīgā darba atbalsts vai nē. Labklājības ministrija tad ar šī gada augustu, šī gada vasaru ir tie, kuri veido politiku un nodarbinātības valsts aģentūra būs tā, kas tad mēģinās šo politiku darbināt praksē, kuri jau daļēji, vienu jomu ir darbinājuši jau 10 gadus. Un tad tikko ir izveidot arī brīvprātīgā darba konsultīvā padoma, kā jau teica Uzulāna kungs, es gan viņu labošu, ka ir 12 nevalstisko organizāciju pārstāvji un 12 valsts puses pārstāvji. Tie tad ir tādi spēlētāji, kuri var tajā politiskā līmenī, bet kuri visi spēlētāji ir visi jūs, kuri darbojās visās šitajās jomās. Tad par datiem mazliet. Vienīgais dats, ko mēs varam tiešām paņemt, ir 6,2%. Nākamajā slaidā var redzēt labāk, cik tad vispār brīvprātīgā darba aktivitāte ir aktīva. Jā, Eiropas Savienībā. Eiropas Savienība ir 12%, ja nemaldot. 12,3% un Latvija ir 6,2%. Tātad, jūs redzat, zilais ir vidēji Eiropas Savienībā un Latvijā apakšā. Visaugstāk, tātad vislabākie dati Eiropas Savienībā vai Eiropā kopumā ir Norvēģijā, pēc tam Nīderlanda, Dānija, Šveica, Luksemburga. Pasaulē vēl mēs varam redzēt, ka Kanādā ir 79% no cilvēkiem saka, ka viņi iesaistās brīvprātīgā darbā. Tie gan ir pirms Covid dati, tā kā tie varētu būt mazinājušies, Eiropā ir mazinājušies tie dati pirms un pēc Covida. Un es pieminēšu vēl dažus interesantus faktus, ka Kanādā vidēji iesaistās cilvēki no 82 līdz 222 stundām gadā. Tas ir tāds pastāvīgs brīvprātīgais, jau labs, jā. Es veicu pagājušajā gadu, ne šogad bakalaura darbu ietvaros pētījumu, un tur laikam aizpildīju ļoti aktīvi cilvēki, jo tur parādījās sākot no 50, beidzot ar 600 stundām. Tā kā tie, kuri pārsvarā darbojas jaunatnes organizāciju vai sporta organizāciju, tādā ļoti regulārā darbā katru nedēļu, tad tiem savācās tās 500 stundas ar visām nometnēm un pārgājieniem un sporta turnīriem. Pa Ameriku ir interesanti, jā, tad ir 25% vidēji, bet, piemēram, Jūtas štatā, kur ir ļoti izplatīta reliģiskā, tad mormoņi, kā mēs zinām, viņiem ir tuvu pie 40, un tas noteikti ir saistīts arī ar to kultūru konkrētajā štatā. Vēl interesants fakts, kad pie Amerikas ir tad, kad bija 9/11, jeb kad tika bija terorakts Ņujorkā Dviņu torņos, tad pēc tam Džordžs Bušs teica, es aicinu visus amerikāņus iesaistīties un veltīt 2 gadus no savas dzīves brīvprātīgajiem darbam. Un, ja tu saprēķini, tad tās, manuprāt, ir kaut kādas tikai 100 stundas gadā, kas būtu tāds ļoti normāls, ja mēs saskatām 52 nedēļas, tad katru nedēļu vajadzētu veikt 2 stundas, un tas būtu tāds, ko viņš aicina ekonomiski aktīviem cilvēkiem darīt. Un tas tiešām arī pieauga. Viņiem bija tādi dati, ka tiešām cilvēki iesaistījās un atsaucās šim prezidenta aicinājumam. Ar to es gribu teikt, ka mēs katrs esam demokrātijā tāds savu veidu prezidents savā kopienā, un mēs noteikti varam aicināt vēl cilvēkus uzrunāt un iesaistīties, lai viņi veltu vismaz 2 stundas brīvprātīgā darba katru nedēļu. Labi, un Latvijā vēl es gribētu atgriezties, kad vēl ir pētījums par pilsonisko izglītību, kur parādās, ka jaunieši iesaistās, ka viņi ir vismaz piedalījušies kādā brīvprātīgā darba aktivitātē, tie ir 38%, un kādā organizācijā tie ir 12%. Un tad ir pavisam svaigi jaunatnes politikas monitoringa dati, kur parāda, ka brīvprātīgā darba aktivitātēs ir iesaistījušies 18%. Tā kā šie dati atkarībā no auditorijām un ievāktiem metodēm mainās. Vēl mazliet par naudu, jo man liekas, ka tas ir svarīgi par to ekonomisko vērtību. Latvijā bija 10. gadā pētījums, un tad tika pateikts, ka brīvprātīgā darba ieguldījums ir 0,65% no iekšzemes koprodukta. Tad tās valstis, kas rēķina regulāri, tad tas ir 2 un pat vairāk, 2,6 Kanādā. Es neatradu referenci, tāpēc neliku, man liekas, Nīderlandē ir 4,8 vai kaut kas tāds procents. Tā kā tie cipari un arī kā nu katra valsts ievāc datus, tas ir arī vesela māksla. Un es savā bakalaura darbā pētīju to, cik liela atdeve ir. Un es ņēmu vērā Latvijas skautu gaidu organizāciju, Latvijas mazpulks, kluba māja, ziņotos datus par to brīvprātīgo darbu, ko viņi veic ikdienā. Tās ir nacionāla mēroga jaunas organizācijas Latvijā un salīdzināju arī ar Igaunijas skautu un gaidu organizācijām. Un tie dati ir līdzīgi, visām organizācijām var sīkāk apstīties, bet tā atdeve pret to, cik viņi saņem vai spēj dotācijās piesaistīt no valsts, ir vismaz 2 līdz 4 reizes lielāk, ko viņi savā brīvprātīgā darbā atdod atpakaļ valstī. Tā kā šis ir pilnībā argumentēts fakts par to, ka ieguldījums brīvprātīgā darbā tiešām ir investīcija un nevis valsts izmaksa, jo viņa atdod atpakaļ vairāk. Labi, tad ir tādas teorijas par cilvēku kapitālu un par sociālo kapitālu, un es vienkārši parādīšu vienu tabulu. Tātad ir dažādas teorijas, kā mēs skatāmies uz cilvēku resursu vispār, kas mums ir valstī. Un, ja mēs viņus salīdzinām, tad cilvēku resursu, tagad varbūt es dzirdējuši, cilvēku resursu padomi. Kurš ir dzirdējis? 1, 2, 3, 4. Lipskungs, jums arī būtu jāceļ roka. 5. Labi, tad es paiešu atpakaļ. Labi, bet man tur tālāk vēl interesants slaidi. Raugi, cilvēku resursu padomu tā, kas skatās, kā mēs tos cilvēkus, kas mums Latvijā, mēs viņus varam ekonomiskāk, labāk iesaistīt, lai mums būtu aktīvāka ekonomika. Un tad mēs skatāmies tur dažādas elements, kā piemēram, kāda ir izglītība, kādas ir prasmes, kāda ir veselība, kāda ir arī ne tikai empātiskās prasmes, bet arī pavisam specifiskas prasmes, piemēram, tur urbt un zāģēt un informācijas tehnoloģijas. Uz cilvēku resursu mēs pārsvarā skatāmies no individa perspektīvas, ko tad, cik cik mēs investējot vienā individā varam ekonomiski iegūt Latvijai atpakaļ. Tātad mērķis ir palielināt valsts produktivitāti. Un tad mēs skatāmies, kas ir tie dažādie instrumenti, ko mums ir vieglāk vai visus apmācīt komunikācijas prasmēs, vai visus apmācīt tagad IT. Kā mums tirgus rāda. Vai, protams, arī atver tirgu imigrācijai. Tā ir lielākā izšķiršanās. Ja mēs skatāmies sociālo kapitālu, tas vairāk pēta kolektīvo raksturu, tas skatās uz attiecībām un savstarpējiem sociālajiem tīkliem, cik liela kopiena mums ir katram. Ir dažādas teorijas, kas pierāda, ka sociālais kapitāls noteikti palīdz pašorganizēties sabiedrībām, viņa ātrāk atgūstās un ieiet darba tirgū pēc dažādām krīzēm. Kā tikko veikts Essex universitātē, pavisam svaigs pētījums ir ļoti interesanti, ka viņi parāda tieši milēnieļu, salīdzināt ir milēnieļi ar senioriem. Un tur ir ilgi pētīts un dažādām metodēm. Un tieši reliģiskās grupās un arī citās grupās, bet tas pētījuma rezultāts parāda to, ka sociālais kapitāls reliģiskās grupās ir visaugstākais, jo tur ir starp paudžu mijiedarbība. Un tur veidojās šī sadarbība, šī uzticība, šī zināšana pārnese, un visvieglāk arī tie cilvēki atgūstās no dažādām krīzēm un ieiet atpakaļ darba tirgū daudz raitāk. Un viņas sociālais kapitāls rada šīs kopienas pašpietiekamākas. Labi, tad es eju tālāk, man ir 5 minūtes. Šito savalkot kopā, es gribu teikt, ka brīvprātīgais darbs ir ieguldījums abos. Gan to, ka mēs attīstam prasmes, gan arī šīs kopienas. Latvijas Nacionālās attīstības plāns politikas plānošanas dokumentā ir minēts 4 reizes brīvprātīgais darbs kontekstā pie saliedētība, drošība un stipras un veselas ģimenes. Brīvprātīgais darbs noteikti ir arī ieguldījums lielākā bildē, kas ir ilgtspējas attīstības mērķiem. Arī dažādi dokumenti Eiropas Savienības līmenī saka, ka mums ir jāinvestē brīvprātīgajā darbā, jo ir lielāka kapacitāte organizācijām, jo viņas spēja iesaistīt vairāk un efektīvāk brīvprātīgos. Infrastruktūras atbalsts tajās valstīs, kur ir dažādi brīvprātīgo centri, brīvprātīgais darbs notiek raitāk un efektīvāk. Un ļoti būtiski visos pēdējo gadu dokumentos ir, cik investīcijas brīvprātīgo apmācībās ir nozīmīgas kvalitātē tajā brīdī, kad ir kaut kādas krīzes. Tā kā, ja mēs domājam par dažādām krīzēm šodienas kontekstā, tad ir jāinvestē šodien, lai mēs rītdien esam gatavi. Tendences Eiropā, es gribēju pieskarties mazliet tendences pasaulē, ka mainās uztvere, kas ir brīvprātīgais, ka vairs nav tipiski pie organizācijām, bet arī ir mikro brīvprātīgiem. Ir ļoti svarīgi brīvprātīgiem savienoties ar to lielo bildi, piemēram, ar tiem 1000 vai tiem ilgspējas attīstības mērķiem, ka mēs darām kaut ko vairāk, nevis tikai vienkārši atnākam sakrāmēt kaut ko. Bet tā lielā bilde ir svarīga. Tad ir tendence arī uz to, ka daudzas lietas notiek tīklos, darbībās ar mācību, piemēram, izveidot vienu kopīgu mājaslapa, uzturēt, piemēram, tur X ielas kopienas, tur drošība, tur Smiļģa ielas drošība. Tagad visi ir saslēdzas visas savas kameras vienā IT lapā un viss notiek. Un vairāk tiek meklēti kopsaucēji. Un tiek skatīts arī, tiek iet, protams, no mēs uz es, ko es iegūstu no tā, ka es daru brīvprātīgo darbu, ka es kļūstu par labāku pilsoni ar dažādām prasmēm un ka esmu daļa no lielās bildes. Ko es gribēju vēl pieminēt pie tās uztveres, un tās maiņas, ka kādreiz, piemēram, netika uzskatīts, ka brīvprātīgi ir tie, kas iet plakātus, turēt dažādās kampaņās, tad šobrīd tas tiek jau sākt uzskaitīt, un no tāda aktīvā pilsoniskuma un pulcēšanās tiek skatīts arī, ka ir aktīva arī tāda tāda pretestība, pretošanās, ko mēs šodien redzam arī, kas notiek Gruzijā, kad viņi ir pauži arī pretojoties. Tātad jēga brīvprātīgam darbam ir, tas jau pateikts visos politikas plānošanas dokumentos, ja kāds vēl apšauba. Tad Mārtiņš Steins teica, ka viņš parāda, kur vīzija, kur mēs ejam tālāk. Tad Mārtiņ, es saku, ka mums jāiet tālāk, ka mēs jāsaka, ka mēs esam, viņš nav šeit klāt, bet mums jātiec uz to, ka mēs esam nācija, kura ir tāda brīvprātīgo nācija, kura grib palīdzēt, kura ir empātiska, kura var tās 2 stundas nedēļā atlicināt, un tas padarīs Latviju laimīgāku, konkurētspējīgāku un drošāku. Un iespējas, kā to darīt, ir daudz, gan daudz. Un tad tādas 4 punkti, ko šodien noteikti diskusijās mēs visi varam pieskarties. Te ir spēles laukums dziesmu svētki, nākamgad arī ir dziesmu svētki, un tad mēs runājam par datiem, kuru mums nav praktiski, tad mēs varam nākošgad izmēģināt ar dziesmu svētku un varam šo te, salikt kopā un iznalizēt vislabākos datus, ko mēs gribam, piemēram, no brīvprātīgajiem dziesmu svētkos. Mums ir tagad arī jauna brīvprātīgā darba padoma, tad mēs varam praktizēt jebkādus politikas darbības virzienus, un arī šis spēles lauks ir atvērts. Mums ir jāveicina atpazīstamība un prestižs, un jāmudina iesaistīties cilvēkus, ka mēs katrs varam šodien uzrunāt jau vēl citus 5, piemēram, lai iesaistās. Tad ir resursi un kapacitāti, kas ir ļoti būtiski, kā jau minēja, gan par telpām, gan arī par finansējumu. Mēs varam aicināt un taisīt labākās infokampaņas pasaulē, kad nāciet iesaistīties brīvajā darbā, bet ja organizācijām nebūs kapacitāte viņus jaunus brīvprātīgos uzņemt, viņi tāpat arī aizbirs tālāk kaut kur. Un mēs te cīnāmies starp Netflix un chill un darīt kaut ko labu. Tā kā tā izvēle ir liela. Un pēdējais punkts, ko es arī gribētu aicināt, ir sadarbība, jo bieži vien ar to sadarbību mēs varam celt to kapacitāti, atpazīstamību, un tā ir tāda demokrātija praksē, gan priekos, gan krīzēs. Un, kā teica kanādiešu hokejists, ka labs hokejs spēlē tur, kur ir ripa, izcils hokejs spēlē tur, kur tā atradīsies. Tad mums, kā šodien, kas domā par brīvprātīgu darbu sistēmām, jāskatās, kur tad mūs tā ripa atradīsies, un es ticu, ka kopā sadarbojoties pēc gada vai 2 mēs jau varēsim redzēt mūsu spēles rezultātus. Ceru, ka tie būs pozitīvi. Paldies!
Paldies, nebeidz prom. Kamēr jūs domājat jautājumus Agnijai, man Agnija patika, paldies, ka tu pacēli, labs darbs, man patika, kā tu teici, ka tiek domāts par to, ka brīvprātīgais darbs varbūt ir savādāk definējams, vai ne? Jo man liekas, ka Latvijā nav tik slikti, vienkārši ne visi cilvēki sevi sauc par brīvprātīgiem. Tas īstenībā ir tāds moderns vārds, ne? Nav tā?
Man liekas, ka brīvprātīgais diezgan stilīgs vārds ir, jā, tāpēc, ka nav dati, varbūt mums viņi ir vairāk. Mums īstenībā ir, es esmu uzskaitījis vismaz 12 avotus, kur mēs varam jau šodien dabūt datus, bet neviens mēs neesam viņus īstenībā apkopojuši. Vai arī tie dati ir manuāli. Mēs esam ziņojuši, piemēram, kā organizācijas, cik mums ir brīvprātīgā, cik stundas esam, bet vidā neviens viņus neanalizē. Knabā neviens neanalizē politisko partiju datus. Uzņēmuma reģistrs prasa naudu, lai mēs dabūtu datus ārā no tiem datiem. Tāds absurds, kas īstenībā es ceru, ka labklājības ministrija palīdzēs mums šajā un ar ekonomikas ministriju sakārtot šos. Un svarīgi pieminēt, ka ļoti daudzās valstīs datus vāc caur darba spēka apsekojumiem, mājsaimniecību apsekojumiem, tautas skaitīšanu. Un tad ir daudz vieglāk un daudz reālāk dabūt tiešām kvalitīvus datus. Un es ļoti ceru, ka tas tiks risināts.
Jo manā mazpilsētā arī, kad es esmu runājis par dažādiem labiem darbiem, tad man saka, kā latvietis jau nelapojas, es eju un izdaru, palīdzu savam kaimiņam, es nestāstu nevienam, ka es esmu to izdarījis. Varbūt mēs daudz ko nemaz nezinām, vai ne?
Mistērija.
Vēl tāds jubilejas jautājums. Ja? Sistēma ir, sēž visi ap galdu, beidzot likums ir. Kāda būtu viena tava vēlēšanās, kur tai ripai būtu jālido tālāk?
Viena?
Viena. Sāksim ar vienu.
Cik ilgā laika periodā?
Šodien bez robežām.
Es domāju, ka, ja mums būs tie dati, mums būs arī jēdzīgāk plāni un gan organizācijām, gan valstī kopumā. Un, man liekas, tā ripai jāiet sakārtot datus, un tad nākamgad mēs varam varbūt bišķiņu vairāk slaidus pa datiem.
Vai ir jautājumi Agnijai? Ir, lūdzu, bet mikrofoniņā, lai tulki var tulkot. Labi, tad... Ui! Esot uz laimi, tā kā viss kārtībā, mēs šodien tautas tradīcijās te visu.
Jā. Sveiki, man ir tīri tehnisks jautājums, jo es konstatēju, ka es pati nezinu. Tad, kad tu runāji par starptautiskās darba organizācijas tiem darba dalījumiem, kas ir šajā kategorijā cits darbs? Un kas ir šis darbs, kas eksistē starp darbu pašu labumam un darbu sabiedrības labumā, kas nav brīvprātīgais darbs? Man ļoti šis aizrauj. Paldies.
Es tev tagad no galvas precīzi nepateikšu, bet es varu atsūtīt saitu, kur to noteikti var izlasīt. Jā.
Tā, labi. Vai ir vēl kāds jautājums?
Es varu tikai varbūt vēl komentāru par to, ka, man liekas, joprojām Latvijas sabiedrībā vēl tās stereotips, ka brīvprātīgo darbu var darīt tikai jaunieši. Man liekas, mums vēl jāinformē sabiedrība, ka nē, drīkst arī piedalīties visa gada gājuma, jo mums ir pieredze, palīdzēsim LV, ka mums darbojas brīvprātīgie no 3 gadu vecuma līdz 86 gadu vecumam. Tā kā es domāju, tam nekad nav ierobežojumi, vai ne? Bet mums par to būtu jārunā, man šķiet vairāk.
Paldies.
Jā, mēs paldies par priekšlikumu. Es domāju, ka es arī mudināju FM žurnālu ir, lai viņi raksta sēriju rakstus un televīziju, lai viņi arī taisa vairāk sižetus. Jā, tas, man liekas, arī kā mēs izceļam savus brīvprātīgos. Jauniešiem ir fokusēts, un arī citās valstīs ir tas, ka mums jāsāk ātrāk, un mēs arī tajā investējam valsts naudu. Pārējiem jau tas vairāk ir tā kā izvēle.
Ļoti vērtīgi, lūdzu.
Jā, es piekrītu, Veida negribēju teikt, bet, tā kā jūs iesākāt, es principā mums ļoti maz tiek, es ar prezentāciju nezinu, ka tu pat esi iesaistīties kā skauta organizācija, bet tā nozīme, ko nozīmē tieši skolas, padomes, universitātes un tā tālāk, kāda darbu viņi dara. Un mēs nevaram tikai runāt par attīstību, ja mēs nesākam par apmācību. Tas nozīmē, ka tas kults, tā ideja jāsāk jau no bērnu dienām, no 3 gadiem. Un praktiski man ir bijis tāda situācija, kur cilvēks nāk arī, viņam ir 12 gadi, un mamma saka, es gribētu strādāt zooloģiskā, bērns, lai iet vasarā palīdzēt zooloģiskā dārzā, saka, ne, viņi nedrīkst, neviens viņi neņem pretīm. Tā kā mēs no vienas puses sakam, jā, darīsim, bet no otras puses bērni praktiski tiek no jauniešiem, bet bērni tiek izlikt ārā no šitās visu grupas. Un skolai ir milzīga nozīme. Es varu pat no savas personīgas pieredzes pateikt, ļoti liela nozīme šī jautājumā.
Paldies. Par atvērtību. Ļoti labs jautājums. Vai mēs esam atvērti brīvprātīgajiem?
Mēs esam tik atvērti, cik ir mūsu spēkos. Un jo mēs celsim to kapacitāti, mēs būsim vēl atvērtāki. Tur ir, mēs varam iet ar, kā teikt, asins pa degunu tek un izdarīt tik, cik mēs varam. Bet ja mums jādomā ir, kā apsildīt telpas, kā tos brīvprātīgos sakoordinēt, vai ka viņu dati ir droši, ka viņiem ir pateikts paldies, ka viņi ir apmācīti, tad tur tā atvērtība ar to kapacitāti miedarbojās.
Es tev piekrītu, jo tas ir tas, ko dažkārt piemirst, vai ne? Ka ir tie brīvprātīgie jākoordinē, kādam viņiem ir jāstrādā, un tam tie resursi, būsim atklāti, nav jau īsti, vai ne?
Es visam īsti komentāru par to jauniešu vecumu, jo man liekas, tas ir ļoti būtisks punkts, kas arī mums tika universitātē, arī šis jautājums bija. Latvijā var brīvprātīgi veikt no 13 gadiem. Līdz tiem 13 gadiem tā vairāk ir tā kā pieredze. Tas ir tāpat, kā tu bērnam rādi dažādu mūziku. Tu viņu aizved uz rock mūzikas koncertus, klasisko mūziku, uz folk mūziku. lai viņš iepazīst dažādu mūziku. Tāpat arī ar brīvprātīgo darbu, tu viņam iedod, tas ir vairāk ir kā mācību elements, viņa personības izaugsmē, un tam ir burvīgi, ja to dara ģimene, vēl burvīgāk, ja arī izglītības iestāde, un tas varbūt pat ir sistemātiski iekšā. Un daudzās sociālo mācību stundās tas ir arī iekšā, bet tur noteikti ir izaugsme. Un ar pēdējos 2 gados arī vidusskolās, bet tie jau ir jau virs tiem 13, viņi var arī darīt savu vidusskolas projektu, ka tas ir brīvprātīgais darbs, to gan sauc par sabiedrisko darbu. Un tur arī mums vēl datu nav.
Kafijas pauze nāk tūmā. Paldies!
Paldies!
Paldies! Lieli aplausi Agnijai! Tā, tagad mums notiks darbošanās angļu valodā. Ja kādam ir nepieciešamas austiņas, es saprotu, ka tās var dabūt tur. Jā, vai nu tad tie ir paņēmuši, kuriem ir vajadzīgas, ja nu kādam vēl vajag, tad var paspēt izskriet ārā pēc austiņām, jo tālāk tad darbosimies angliski. Es klausījos Agnijā, un man ļoti patika, es tā baudīju tādas mazas valsts priekšrocības. Labklājības ministrijas departamenta direktors, ja? Imants, bijušais iekšlietu ministrijas parlamentārais sekretārs Mārtiņš, ja? Mēs visi viens otru pazīstam. Un man liekas, ka Islande arī ir diezgan maza valsts, kurā arī ir šī savstarpējā sadarbība un pazīšanās un atbildība, laikam tāda ļoti kopīga, jo mazā valstī no viena cilvēka ir atkarīgs ļoti daudz. Un tāpēc es gribētu dot vārdu Augustam Ingi Kjærnstonam. Es esmu cilvēks no tiem video YouTubes, kur jāmācās islandiski izrunāt. Ja? Jūs ziniet, ir tie video. Un no organizācijas Landsbjorga, kurš pastāstīs par Islandes civilās drošības sistēmu un arī par to, kā viņi ir integrēti šajā te visā funkcionalitātē kā organizācija. Lūdzu.
I'm not in the way, okay. So I'm August, I'm from Icelandic Search and Rescue. So it's Landsbjörg is the name in Icelandic. It stands for the Icelandic Association for Search and Rescue. Iceland, have you been to Iceland? Yeah, you probably heard about the volcano and I heard about that tourists are getting scared to come to Iceland because of the volcano. It's safe, so don't worry about that. We are quite a small population of only 400,000 and over 2 million tourists. And we have the volcanoes, glaciers, lagoons, mountains, no forest almost. So it's like a desert island. There is only like the mountains and beaches and bad weather and a lot of other things. I think I skipped one slide. Oh, it's not. Okay. So search and rescue in Iceland is 100% volunteer work. And the ISAR is like a sledgehammer for the emergency services. So we have the police, we have police, and we have a fire department, and then the Coast Guard. We don't have any military in Iceland, so and we are like the big sledgehammer. So if something goes bad, they call ISAR, and we have like all the specialized equipment for searching, so the drones, we have the vehicles to be able to go on glaciers, we have the experience for mountain rescue, swift water rescue, and such things that the regular services are unable to do. So, it's based on about like 4,500 personnel that make up 100 teams. And most of the teams are quite close to the capital area, and then we get more further away from the capital area. It's get more scarce, and just by the population, because the half of the population of Iceland lives in Reykjavik. Myself, I live in Selfoss, which is about 50 kilometers away from Reykjavik, and we are like almost in the dense circle of population of Iceland. And the 100 teams, we make up the ISAR, and the ISAR is the umbrella organization for search and rescue in Iceland. We are 100% funded by donations, so we get donations personnel donate to the cause every month, or we do some fundraising over the year. And the oldest fundraising in Iceland has been selling fireworks during the new year, and then we sell a keychain. And generally, the population of Iceland is quite generous of supporting us. But what we do is quite expensive, so there is a lot of equipment to do, and there is a lot of training to do, and so, but we are well funded for that standard. So the volunteer work in ISAR, it starts in many teams in the youth divisions. Then they're just young in school, and it's mostly like a fun thing to do. They learn how to some mountaineering, they learn some basic navigation skills, and then they learn also like a first aid and something in that. And then many teams have a basic training, almost all of them have a basic training. Then you go through basic training courses, and that takes about 1 or 2 winters, and after that you'll be able to respond to call-outs. And then we have to do because we are the emergency services, we don't know when the call comes, so many of us do have some kind of a contract through to our working places and our bosses. And so if something happens, we were able to go. And for example, I work for the government, for the National Hospital in Iceland, and I have a contract with my work that I'm able to respond to almost anything. It just depends on what I'm working in at the time, but I'm able to go for even days away from my work, and that's normal in Iceland. We get call-outs via SMS from the emergency number. So if someone calls the emergency number and tells like a friend of them fallen in a river or they're stuck in a mountain or something like that, the emergency services will call out the police and the EMS services, and then will probably call out the ISAR and the nearest teams and maybe the Coast Guard, and we will respond to that. And everything happens in the first few minutes. You're like, where is it, where it is, what is the type of the incident, and we need to coordinate everything in the first few minutes, because it depends on the priority. If it's a life and stake, we will get like a license to. We will have the emergency services lights on, and we are able to respond quite quickly. But it always takes a time for us to get from our home, from our families, and to the rescue station. There is no one there, so we all need to coordinate what equipment we will use to do the rescue or the search, and responding to calls is not mandatory. So you will just, which is like at the same time a little bit hard to know how many people will respond. So you maybe call out SMS to 200 people, but you don't know how many will respond. So it's quite a challenge, but so that's why the first few minutes, when you're trying to get to know like who will go with me and everything, so it's quite a challenge, but we are getting used to it, especially when you've done it for like 18 years or something. Yeah. So the members need to coordinate the team, the first response. So, yeah. So part of our equipment is we have very specialized vehicles for driving in muddy and snow terrain. Off-road driving in Iceland is illegal, but you're allowed to drive anywhere when there's snow over it. So the rescue team started a lot rescuing Icelanders first, because there was no tourists in Iceland, but now it's getting more like rescuing tourists also. And then there is like this adventurous tours or adventurous people crossing Iceland or something like that. Then you're really, really far away from population, and it might take hours to get to you. And then we have specialist vehicles for doing that. Is it working? Where is that? Okay. So the good times. What is the good thing of being in a search and rescue in Iceland? So the good part is that you're able to do a lot of fun. So all the training, you maybe do a really specialized training. When you go on courses, you learn a skill set, you learn how to mount a rescue or surviving outside or first aid in wilderness or something like that. And then we also do just like informal training, which is let's go and hike that mountain, or let's go skiing, or let's go travel some to this hut in the middle of Iceland or something like that during the winter. And that is like the perks of being in search and rescue in Iceland is you get to use all of the equipment almost all the time. So, and the teams will provide the fuel and the equipment, but at the same time you will have to bring back your volunteer work in searching and fundraising and rescuing. So, and so with this, doing the fun stuff together, we make up the good camaraderie. So we get to be good friends, and we get to share the experience together of doing the fun stuff, because sometimes there are bad times. And yeah. So myself, I ski a lot, and I also do swiftwater rescue. So I do a lot of swimming or rafting in rivers. So, and I'm able to do that with good people of that I can trust, and so we build up the trust, and you know when you get to, especially like in the first minutes, when you're trying to coordinate the rescue or something like that, you know, oh, okay, this one is with me, and I have done a lot of work with this one together. So you feel more confident in what you do, because you know the person very well who you're working with.
I think it's somewhere there in the front.
Is it in there?
At least I was told so.
Okay, is it? Yes. So, probably you know about the volcanic eruption in Iceland. So a few years ago, it started volcanic eruption near near a town of Grindavík, which is a fishing town outside of Reykjavík, very close to the Icelandic airport of Keflavík. And it started first few years ago, just like really outside of the town, no problems, nothing to happen there. But then later, the eruption, like it was the eruption on and then off and on and off. And then it started shaking a lot around the town of Grindavík. And for 1 year ago, 13 months ago, the town was evacuated because there was really high earthquakes in Iceland and in that town. And the town started to split, like literally into two places. And then it started erupting just outside of the town of Grindavík. And in the town of Grindavík, there was like a lot of crevices everywhere. And the photo is from January, when there was a work after the eruption, when the eruption had stopped it. The people wanted to go back to Grindavík because they thought there was like, we'll need to like fix the infrastructure of Grindavík, and there was a person there working, filling in crevasse there, and then the earth collapsed underneath him and he just fell down. And then we have removed a lot of material, and there is a crevasse underneath them there. And that's like one of our work is we like specialized in a lot of things. So there we are searching underground for a person, but at the same time it was really hard to do so because everything was still shaking. So you could not really send personnel down to search. You had to search by water or and like sending like one person each time so in the first we sent people down, but then later we stopped doing that because of the high risk and the lower return, because there would probably not be a rescue anymore, so it would probably be more of a recovery. So that was a really sad time that something happened like that inside of Grindavík. And there is then we do like of swift water stuff also. The photo from on the left is from north of Iceland. There was during the winter there was a boy who fell into ice, and this is my friend of mine searching for him during the night, and everything was quite frozen because of the very cold weather at the time. The photo of the helicopter was just from this summer when a tourist fell into a river in Iceland. This is the Coast Guard. So the Coast Guard is the professional service, and it's the only one who operates helicopters in Iceland. And yeah, and then just photo from exercise, and then there is a part of the crevasse. So you can see like on the right photo, I think it's a pointer there. You can see that, no, it doesn't work. Then there is, where the emergency services are, there is the crevasse. So you can see the crevasse was going underneath the house or through the garden of the house where the accident happened. So the importance of volunteers, the search and rescue in Iceland would not be possible without the volunteers, because we have quite a large pool of members that are able to respond everywhere in Iceland. It just depends on the time, because most members are in the southwest, but you can respond everywhere. It will just take the time to get there, and we are, yeah. So the balance between fundraising and activities is a challenge. So you're trying to get the members to fundraise all the time, and then you're trying to you'll need to have like a fun work in together. So you need to fundraise to buy the equipment, but then you also have to like have the balance of like returning the favor of doing everything, and then the same time how are you gonna favor the families of taking away the family member for a search and rescue for maybe hours or days every year. So yes, the diversity of volunteers are key strengths in search and rescue in Iceland. So the team members can be everything from like carpenters and myself. I'm a programmer, and then up to engineers and everything, which makes us really strong when it comes to solving challenges, because you are solving something like when the crevasse rescue in Grindavík, we had like a engineer with us who was like groundwork engineer, worked in mining or something, and he was like, yeah, we know everything, but like this is really high risk of collapse and everything. So we had the members just inside of the ISAR, so we have really broad skill set to use. Yeah, so that is how search and rescue is in Iceland in a really high level. So, yeah, any questions?
Any
Sorry,
questions?
was I
No,
too
no.
finished? I was trying to be
You still have
insensitive.
time.
I have time, okay.
I have 2 minutes for you.
Okay, 2 minutes. So my for example of like hours that we do, because you were talking about hours before. My team, there's about 90 members, and the top 10 members have more than 300 hours. And like I myself has done about 500 hours in volunteer or search and rescue for the last year. So it's most like the 10% of everyone working do most of the work. And it's like the age of participants is mostly from 18 to like 30 years old, and then people start having families, and then they'll have the kids and everything, and most of the time they'll come back. So it's quite fascinating to see how search and rescue is mostly done by really young people, and then older people at the same time, because they are coming back for search and rescue because of the fun and the camaraderie, and because of all the friends they have and it, and of course the fun stuff of going, just having a tour in the winter, or traveling, or doing like ice climbing or skiing or something like that. So I think it's a unique in Iceland how we do it, and I'm quite proud of doing that. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Any questions? Yes.
Thank you for your experience. I have two questions. The first question is, tell us about collaboration with another emergency services who are leading and that kind of experience. And the second question is about works that have a larger scale. For example, you told us for some specific search and rescue works, but do you work with like a lot of amount of people for helping them to evacuate? You have the volcano to help evacuate a lot of amount of people and something like that. Thank you.
So the first question, like working with other emergency services. So we most of the time we're working closely with the police and the EMS, so the ambulance services. And we are like an extension of that. So when the ambulance services are unable to get to the personnel, we are like the personnel that will help them with that. That can be like providing the correct vehicle, or reaching them in mountainous area or something like that. And then we have the fire rescue, or the fire services, and the fire services in Iceland mostly only do fire, and then they'll do like evacuating from like car accidents. They all like cut up the vehicles and everything like that. We don't do that, and that's part of the daily emergency services. And we do only what the daily services are unable to do. So the daily work is the ambulance and the police and the fire brigade. And when there is something like outside of their expertise, we do that. So we have a good collaboration, and we are officially part of the emergency services in Iceland. But yeah, so it's like you have a toolbox, and we are the really big hammer in the toolbox.
Good. And the second question was about mass evacuation.
Yes, so the system in Iceland is the emergency services in Iceland are able to send like a SMS to get us to respond, but they're also able to send SMS to group of just normal people within an area. So we'll get an SMS. You're inside of an area which is being evacuated, please evacuate the area or something like that. So we have that, and then we are able to call out maybe 500 people within hours in search and rescue in the capital region. So when you get further away, example, I was working in the Breiðamerkurjökull in the southeast of Iceland, we were only like 60 or 80 people that were able to respond because there were just a lot lower numbers of people. So the population is quite not as dense in that area. So we had to send many of the responders from the capital region. But you could probably send maybe 500 people or something like that, but it will just take 10 hours to get there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You already feel that we are increasing the pace, right? We are moving towards the discussion. And now I would like to invite Eero Ramo from Finland. And you know, we are a little bit envy all the time about Lithuanian Red Cross. And I feel we will be more envy about Finnish Red Cross, about their activities. And as I understand, also your voluntary fireman has a historical influence on your independence movement, right? So these rescue issues have, and support issues have been very important in your culture also, like in Iceland's one, right? So please, floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and very good morning. And thank you already for the translators. They've been doing a great job, because my Latvian is a bit rusty, but hopefully we can do this in English. I also joined the Red Cross at the age of 13. I went to a first aid group, and they told me I'm too young, and then guided me to a youth group, and it started from there. And so I've been volunteering throughout my life, and then I started as the Secretary General of the Finnish Red Cross just a bit over a year ago. But I was asked to speak about volunteering, especially in a crisis situation. As you mentioned, volunteering and also in a crisis situation has been a very prominent part of the Finnish history. And Finnish Red Cross, we're celebrating in 3 years' time, we're 150 years of existence. So for a country that's only about a bit over 100 years old, that's quite an achievement, but we've been there for a bit longer. First of all, okay, I think I have the wrong presentation, but that's fine. I know this content as well. First of all, when we talk about preparedness, we divide it into three different parts in the Finnish Red Cross. So, first of all, we look at everyday accidents. If something happens here, if someone gets a heart attack, we want people to be able to help the person next to them straight away. That's why we train first aid skills to everyone. That's why we want to encourage people to help, not just walk by. Then there's different kind of disturbances, and actually under the everyday accidents, we in the Red Cross also calculate situations like if someone's house burns down. Then it's usually the local branch who is there to help the authorities. I will tell about that a bit more later. Then the next level is any sort of disturbances. I saw that you also have adverse weather events. It was snowing yesterday coming here, but for example, in Finland just a couple of weeks ago, 70,000 households were left without electricity after the storms. So these are different disturbances where also the volunteers can have a role in going, just checking, is everything okay? Is this person, usually the local branches, the local volunteers know that if someone lives in an isolated house, maybe we should go and check if everything is okay and if they still have electricity. Very concrete things. And then we have emergency conditions. It doesn't necessarily mean a non-conflict or other conflicts, but it can also mean, for example, pandemic. We saw across Europe that we need very different skill sets, and we need very different approach to volunteering in emergency conditions. And these are the kind of like the criteria we've been working on. Then on volunteering, this is a snapshot of our volunteering policy in the Finnish Red Cross. I kind of been trying to highlight the key things. First of all, we want to welcome everyone who wants to volunteer. We are an open organization for anyone who wants to volunteer and live up to the principles of the Red Cross that are agreed by the state parties to the Geneva Conventions. We're trying to change ourselves so that the volunteers can help how, when, and where it suits them best. It's quite often in different countries we see that the interest in, for example, joining an organization and volunteering every single week at that very specific time is getting more and more demanding. And that's a challenge for the organization. So we need to adapt ourselves and think of different ways to volunteer. The way we volunteered in the 70s doesn't work today anymore. For some it does, and it's important that we have that opportunity as well. But in general, we need to have also ways to volunteer that is very short term and with very low or none training whatsoever. And we really are now looking into different activities, also in terms of disaster preparedness. How can we make volunteer possible in a large scale disaster, for example, for people with very little or no training at all? Then what has been expanding a lot, I think COVID was a good lesson for us, is that volunteering can happen face-to-face and nothing can replace that. But at the same time, especially younger people, they want to get help also on an online setting. It's not either or, but it's also as an addition to getting help and being able to volunteer in the physical world. For example, just a while ago, we had a school shooting in Finland where one child died and two others got injured by a pupil, a seventh grader. And in that situation, young people sought psychological support online. They didn't want to call anyone. They wanted to go to a chat and talk about their feelings. And that's what we want to have there in place, kind of be there where the young people already are, for example. And then, like training was mentioned here already before, I think it's absolutely crucial that we provide our volunteers the knowledge and skills to help safely. That anyone can be a volunteer with the right training. And it's interesting because we know a lot about why people volunteer. There's a lot of benefits, and I'm going to talk about that a bit later, but we also know why people don't come and volunteer. And one of the reasons we found out when we did our volunteer survey was that they don't think they're good enough or that they're not competent enough. And that is something we really need to break and to make volunteering easy and approachable for everyone. The Red Cross is a bit of a different animal, and we by the Geneva Conventions that all states in the world have agreed to, we are auxiliaries to our governments and to authorities. So we have a legal obligation to help the authorities in different times of crisis, and that comes from international law. But however, we do that in accordance and respecting the principles of the Red Cross. So it means that the authorities can always ask us to help, but then it's us deciding if we are going to help or not. So, and it needs to be according to the fundamental rules of the movement that the states have agreed on. So they need to respect them as well. But that doesn't only mean that we help when the authorities ask us. The Red Cross all over the world needs to have their own preparedness and be able to initiate helping regardless what the authorities see. This is extremely important in certain states where, for example, the government regime might be against saying that there is a humanitarian crisis in the country when it actually exists. I mentioned already how the digital volunteering is increasing rapidly, and the need for digital volunteering is increasing. We have an online chat service for young people called Sekasin, which is roughly translated like a bit not in the head. And we are currently able to respond to 1/3 of the chat requests by young people. So there is a constant line of young people waiting to be there. The volunteers who work here, we have never met them physically. Everything has happened online, and they get trained online. We interview them online. They get the authorization from the authorities online, and they can volunteer whenever they want. Whenever they have 1 hour of time, they come online and volunteer there for the chat. 10% of the discussions are with the suicidal young person. So this is a very, but then at the same time, what we notice is that the volunteers don't feel as much pressure as the professionals working in that setting, because they understand that this is a limited time that they have to help this individual person, and then they move on. They will always have the backup support from a professional in these surroundings, and we do this all the time, and then if needed in a crisis situation, we can scale this up. But we want to have everything we do in a crisis situation to be based on something we do during the peacetime, so that we have kind of we have the training, we have the tools and so on in place already, so it makes things move a lot faster. Then, if, for example, if there's a fire in a municipality and someone loses their home, and usually we only need 1 or 2 volunteers locally to support the authorities. So what happens is that we don't put out the fires. Our volunteers take care of the family. They go to the grocery store with them, to a supermarket, to see what kind of clothes do you need to go past the first day. Let's organize the basic things. Quite often people don't have anything to their name in those situations, just to get past the first day. And it's basically them being a shoulder to lean on. So it's about psychosocial support. You don't need a psychologist. You need to be a person to a person and listen and sit down. We have 5,000 volunteers who are trained and on call for this. And then at the same time, we coordinate the volunteer rescue service, which is 52 different organizations coming together. And there together we have 13,000 volunteers who are on call. And we have estimated that within the first 3 hours, roughly 40% of them are able to join at any time of the day. But I think in the same way as in the Icelandic example, when the phone calls you, you might be in the middle of something, or you might be out of the country, so it's hard to estimate sometimes how many people we can get in a certain time. And of course, the geography also makes a difference there. And this is also something that we've been looking into, that how specialized volunteers do we really need to have, and how generic volunteers do we need to have. Because especially when the scale is bigger, you need a lot of hands and a lot of people just to sit down with people and give them, the sense of security if something happens. And then at the same time, we do need, for example, our sea rescue vehicles. So you really need to train yourselves before you get on a ship and start rescuing people at sea. So it's also striking a balance with that. Then, as I mentioned, if something happens very locally, you maybe need 1 or 2 volunteers for that. But then the local cooperation is key. So the volunteer rescue service model that we have is based on authorities having 1 number in the region to call, and through that the volunteers then will alert those who need it. Actually, the most common task for the volunteer rescue service is searching a person who's lost in the forest. There's a lot of forest in Finland, so and a lot of scouts and non-scouts who go to forest and get lost there. Also in the capital region, once a year, scouts get lost in the forest, and then we need volunteer rescue service with the drones, but also just persons going there and looking for people. And the second most common one is if someone's house bursts down, then the basic care for the first 24 hours is provided by volunteers when the authorities can concentrate on something else. Also, we had the eastern border situation in November, where third country national migrants were coming through the border, and then the border guards, the border authority asked the Red Cross to support them in this mission. So while they are handling kind of the procedure, we will sit down with the people, give them hot juice, make sure that they have the basic needs met, so that the authorities can concentrate on their job. This was requested by the authorities, and we evaluate how we work in those situations according to our principles. And then our experience, if I look at 2015, 2016 influx of migrants, if I look at COVID, or if I look at Ukrainian refugees coming to Finland, our experience is that we have thousands of people who want to come and help with no prior experience. And this is actually, it can be quite a challenge. And that's why we have cooperation agreements both with the Ministry of Interior and the Ministry of Social and Health about the Red Cross then being the one organizing these thousands of volunteers and getting them in and trying to find suitable places for them. Especially in a crisis situation, it can be very demanding to be a volunteer and can be a bit straining for you. So that's why quite often we need to really be good at communicating to new volunteers coming in that welcome, but just wait for a minute, because we need to rotate volunteers. We need, fresh people in, but it might take a few weeks. But we know also from my previous jobs, I've been a delegate on the field, whenever something happens internationally, we get hundreds of people calling in like, hey, yes, please, you can send me to Ukraine, or you can send me to Gaza. And that's not how we work. We want them to have the skills and the training before people go there. So what we actually do is, this is our digital volunteering platform, kind of the volunteer registry, where anyone can register if they want to volunteer. And we start by asking, what are you interested in? What do you actually want to do? What are your, if you, in an ideal world, what would you like to do? Do you want to share food supplies? Do you want to collect donations? Collecting donations is something you can do an hour every year, so you don't need to commit yourself to a long-term things. There's multiple different kind of things, and then we continue to looking into asking their skills, what kind of skills you have already on the table, in which regions would you like to work in an online setting, and so on. So we create a profile of each and every one of our volunteers. And currently we have 30,000 volunteers in our database. So, okay. No worries. I thought it was a reaction. Only 30,000. No, that's fine. Don't worry. So we have 30,000 volunteers in our database who are ready to help and want to do something with their spare time. Yesterday, or last week, I checked how many Latvian speakers we have in our database. So we have 13 people who speak Latvian in a professional manner, so that they are able to communicate properly in Latvian. It's not much, but still, in a way, if you need a very specific skill set, we are able to find them through this platform and give them a call. Like, okay, we would really use someone with your skill set. And then this also, we saw, for example, during COVID, when a lot of new volunteers, we got, in a matter of weeks, roughly 2,000 totally new volunteers registered here and wanted to help in the vaccinations and so on. So we were able to then coordinate and look into them. And this is also part of our preparedness. So if a crisis comes, we are able to look through their profiles and try to match their interest with what is needed. And our experience is that no matter what the background of the volunteer in volunteering has been, if they've been distributing food aid or if they've been in a first aid group, they are really willing to learn new tasks once they have first done anything. Just a small volunteering moment is usually a really, really good way into the organization. About the motivation, I said that our volunteers, in the top 5 reasons why they volunteer, number 1 isn't actually helping others, but number 1 is to be beneficial for the society and to do something that has an impact and benefits others. And number 2 is helping others, when we look at the Red Cross volunteers, which is interesting. But I think also we talk a lot about the financial impact of volunteering. But if I look at our research numbers also, we really should talk about the social impacts of volunteering. Not only that we know that volunteers, they live longer, they live happier lives, they are healthier, there's all these benefits that the individual gets, but also if volunteers experience that through volunteering they are part of the society that many of them don't necessarily get from if they are, for example, unemployed, if they haven't been able to get a proper friend group, but then if they feel that they can actually contribute to the society, I think the impact of that is much, much greater than just the calculation that we have out of the volunteer hours. We ask our volunteers very regularly how satisfied they are, what they think about us, and they're really satisfied. It's kind of, but this also is a challenge for us because we want the new volunteers to be at least dissatisfied also. So we need to develop things for the new volunteers, not only for the ones that are currently present. There were over 3,000 volunteers who responded to this survey, and these are the numbers. It's very North Korea-like. My final thing about the volunteering is still our lessons learned maybe. One is the flexibility. I don't, but all the other people have a life outside the Red Cross. So in that way, really need to take into account that people have life and people have different interests, and also volunteering needs to be fit around that, not so that we mold our own lives to fit the volunteering models that were created in the 70s. Then participation, not only that my skills are met, but also volunteers' abilities to affect the operations of the organizations and affect how the organization does things is really important. And then something that we are not really good at, but we are trying to get there, is to give feedback. If 3,000 volunteers respond to our surveys, we really need to tell them how their feedback is taken into account, how this is changing our operations, and what kind of changes are not going to be happening because of the feedback, and have this continuous loop in the development of volunteer work. So with those words, I'm out of time, so thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. Maybe one or two questions. Yes.
Hi. You were showing the skills questionnaire or something like this, and how was this developed? Is it like a platform for all Red Cross everywhere in the world, or is it specific to you? And do you think for very small organizations, maybe like 50 members or so on, it's also useful, but we probably don't have resources to build a questionnaire like big like this? Is there some way we can leverage those kind of knowledge and resources?
Yeah, this kind of like, because this is the key CRM that we have. This is the data system that we have. So we have developed it ourselves, but based on experiences of just copying from the Danes, from the Danish Red Cross. They've had this kind of a system for a long time, but then we had our IT people, creating itself. But nowadays, this happened already after 2015, 2016. We didn't have this during the influx of migrants, and we realized that this isn't going to work. We can't continue with the emails and everything, so we need to have this, and that's why we developed. But nowadays in the market, there are volunteer management softwares that have this inside as well, that are then developed by someone else, because I totally agree. I come from small NGOs as well. It doesn't make any sense for all the NGOs to do something separate. But I also think this is something that can be done together with different organizations. Because, our enemy isn't, or our competitor isn't the other volunteer organizations. Our competitor is all the other things that people do with their free time and the cynicism of people. So that's why I think, whenever there's a platform where you could join any of Latvian organizations, for example, based on what you really want to do, it could probably benefit everyone, and also in a preparedness mindsetting. We're really good with numbers already. We have 30,000 people there. We have 13,000 people on call in different kind of emergency groups across different NGOs. So we're kind of like, we're good with that, but I think that could be a good cooperation opportunity as well. Who is this stranger in the first? Hi, good to see you after, we met maybe
18, 20 years ago.
20 years ago, so yeah.
And in forest.
She hasn't aged at all, which is crazy. So.
You too. Okay, we will share our stories in a coffee break. The question about Red Cross in Finland, now I'm blushing. Basically, it's been an argument sometimes from the Latvian Red Cross, no harm feelings, that you can't do many things because of the international law. But I see that you are cooperating with 53 organizations constantly, right? Can you elaborate this element of cooperation with others? Which element you don't do because you are unique, and where you actually cooperate? Thank you.
Yeah, good question. We are the coordinator of the volunteer rescue service, which all of those organizations belong. Mainly because of the reason that by law we have to have the national preparedness anyway. So it's already a platform that the international law kind of like gives us. But then we won't coordinate missions that go against our principles. Very hypothetical example. This has never been asked by the authorities because they respect the law and the international law. But if there would be, a lot of people crossing the Swedish border to Finland, for example, third country nationals, and the police would request us to come and do a search and rescue and find those people hiding in the forests. We wouldn't coordinate that. It's against our principles. We wouldn't do that. If some other NGO would participate in that, they wouldn't go under the coordination of the volunteer rescue service. They would then, need to deal that with the authorities, but we would never do that. So in that way, I think it's really important that while we are auxiliary to the authorities, we do that based on the fundamental principles and international law and follow those to the dot. And in different countries, of course, this conversation needs to be done with the Red Cross and the authorities, where the limit is drawn, but the bases are very clear. We are a humanitarian aid organization, and we need the humanitarian principle always to be there. But cooperation, as long as we don't people don't start see as bias. For example, we can't cooperate with a single political party. We need to cooperate with every single political party at the same time, or none whatsoever. Or not with one religion, then with all the churches, and kind of like, it's neutrality that we need to uphold is tricky. So I think the Latvian Red Cross is doing a good job. It's not an easy task to be neutral, especially in today's discussions in this world where you really are asked to take sides in every single question.
And I think it's not just about Red Cross. I would say that in Latvia, we slowly, step by step, are learning these humanitarian principles and international law, which is not common here, to be honest. We have had so heated debates about these humanitarian principles here, and we don't have any certified humanitarian NGO in Latvia, just because because of political and geopolitical situation, for us, it's actually very hard not to take sides, right, and be neutral. So this is something which brings a lot of challenges also in our case in possibility to react in crisis, because we don't have any certified organization here. So so thank you, Eero, for your intervention. And now we have video from Norway, from Gudri Itzo Viken from NGO Association.
Hi, my name is Gudri Itzo Viken, and I am a senior political advisor at Frivillighet Norge, which is the association of NGOs in Norway. And it is a pleasure to be able to speak to you today, although I am sorry that I'm not with you physically. But we have a large conference in Norway today as well, as it is the UN Day of Volunteerism, and we will hand out the national prize for the best volunteer in Norway. And volunteering is what I will talk with you about today. Frivillighet Norge is an umbrella for the NGO sector in Norway, and we represent over 370 NGOs that altogether represent 60,000 local chapters. And these organizations vary a great deal in size and matter, and have all kinds of opinions, and they often disagree in specific matters. But in our organization, they agree on one thing: the need for more and better civic space. And this is what we work to promote. And that includes better public funding, VAT compensation, and more accessible laws and regulations. We mainly work nationally, but we also have some international engagement through the Norwegian EEA grant for civil society. And now we will also work with capacity building in Ukraine. So just to give you some perspective on the Norwegian NGOs, we have over the Norwegian NGOs have over 100,000 local chapters altogether. There are 10 million memberships in Norwegian NGOs, which for those of you who know Norwegian numbers will point to that there are more than one membership per inhabitant in Norway. And over 60% of the Norwegian population volunteer regularly. Most of the NGOs are membership-based. You are a member, you pay a membership fee to be a member, and most of them are open to everyone. They are financially and politically independent, and their largest assets are fees and sales, and voluntary work and donations. And the entire efforts of the Norwegian NGOs amount up to 5% of the gross national product, which is quite a lot and something to be proud of. And I put together some pictures for you to show to see the variety of the Norwegian NGO sector. And if we begin at the top left and move clockwise, we first see the Norwegian Society for Sea Rescue. Because Norwegian NGOs are responsible for the search and rescue work in Norway, as well as the civil preparedness. And this is easily seen every time there's some kind of accident in the forest or in the mountains or at sea, but also in situations like the pandemic, when the NGOs were responsible for everything from information to vulnerable groups, to vaccinations, to helping people with practical tasks like transport or shopping. And if we move on to the right, we see the Sami people, who are one of our national minorities. And their organizations are important in taking care of their culture and also of ensuring their rights. And these people are demonstrating inside the parliament against the building of windmills in an area which is important for their very essential reindeer farming. And they were actually sitting there for a long time, and they were chanting their traditional joik, and you could actually hear it during the parliamentary session when they discussed the case. So I watched the discussion at the TV, and I could hear the chant from the other room. And it was, of course, very effectful for the ones present. And they were heard, not only physically, but also politically. We see two women working in the minority organizations. They have diverse ethnic backgrounds, but they volunteer together. And minority organizations are an important part of the Norwegian NGO landscape. And they serve both to include migrants and refugees and in the Norwegian communities, and they work to ensure the needs and rights of migrants and that they are met. And not the least, though, when there are many, many Ukrainian refugees coming. Below right, we see two kids in the Norwegian scouting organizations. And here we see them learning skills to be in the nature. And by that, they mean meet new friends and they have meaningful leisure time. And the volunteers making this happen are both grown-ups, but also children and youth themselves. Then in the middle and the bottom, we see people showing their support for Ukraine. And various demonstrations of support show the power of NGOs, and it engages many people in and outside the organization. And participating in one of those can also be an important way into the NGOs, because you meet people who are engaged in the same causes as you are. And lastly, bottom left, we see people working in a flea market. And these are important fundraising activities for the Norwegian NGOs. The independence from the state is a central value, as I said before, and it is ensured by finding other ways of funding than the public funding. And sales and membership fees are the most central source of income for the NGOs, not the public funding that is only about some 20-something%. Frivillighet Norge measures the civic participation every year. The high level of volunteering is relatively stable in Norway, as this graph shows. It starts on 2018 here on 61%, and we see that it goes a bit up until the 2020, and then it has a dip during COVID, as probably you had as well. But what is very good is that it's increasing again, and now it's back on 61%, which is a very good thing. But still, there are some alarming trends. We see that younger people participate less than before the pandemic. So there is a need to work specifically with the participation of children and youth. We also see individualization, where people tend to be more engaged in personal matters than in the community. And we also see some anti-democratic tendencies in Norway. But I think I would spend the rest of the time talking about that, so I will leave it for now. The NGOs create a large value in society, and this can be divided into two categories. There is an intrinsic value, which is the value to the participant in the NGO's activity. People do what they think is fun and meaningful. They learn new tasks, they get new social networks, and they take care of their own rights. That's the intrinsic value. But there is a huge, as you see, added value. And some of this value is directly shown in tasks solved in various areas, but also very much indirectly, in that it fosters democratic participations, that it builds trust in society, that it builds knowledge and social connection. And these added values are not made to order, but they are important nonetheless to acknowledge and to promote. And it's what the public funders get for free, so to speak. And that's a lot. I will speak a little bit about volunteering. When the participation is so high as in Norway, it means that much of our social life is going on inside the NGOs. We even have a term called dugnad, which means voluntary work, and it's in our DNA to do this in the communities where we live and in the leisure activities of the NGOs. But not everyone has this DNA, and not everyone remembers that they have it. The high level of participation means that people that don't participate risk not being part of central areas in society. And increasing participation is always a goal, and we work on that. And we always start with asking why people volunteer. And when we ask, this is what they answer. They say that they want to contribute in society. They say that they want to support a certain cause. They say that it has great social value. They say that it is good for physical and mental health. And they say it's because they are encouraged. When we finished asking that, we also identified some barriers. We asked why people do not volunteer. And these are some of the most important barriers. Knowledge means that people don't know about the NGOs or their activities. We need to connect with various people where they are. Culture and language means information is not available in other languages than Norwegian. But it can also mean that the language used could be exclusive or less accessible to some people. And it means that the organizational culture could exclude people from feeling welcome and well valued. Economy is a large barrier for many. Everything from membership fees to transport to equipment costs money, and people tend to get less money these days. It is important to find ways to include people regardless of their monetary situation, while still making it possible for the organizations to function. Accessibility is about being able to participate regardless of physical and mental challenges, and it should be a priority for the NGOs. Time is always an issue, and NGOs compete with everything from Netflix to PlayStation. We need to show the value of spending time in the NGOs, and also not demand too much, but instead appreciate what is given. Support and follow-up is crucial to keep the interest once it is given. We see that many quit after the first time they volunteer because they don't feel welcomed, or they're socially insecure. To combat some of these barriers, we have built 2 online platforms. One is called frivillig.no, which means volunteer.no, and is an online recruitment platform where all kinds of NGOs can ask for volunteers for activities, and where people who want to volunteer can find tasks that suit them in the areas where they live. Ungfritid.no means youngleisuretime.no, and it is a platform where all children and youth can find activities in the NGOs where they live. Both of these have proven very successful and have increased the participation all over the country. We also made a guide for increased participation. This encourages local governments and NGOs to participate on increasing the participation. People choose their role in the organization and get a series of tips and tricks, specific tools, and information and recommendation. And it's also you can also choose other roles such as public officials, teachers, health workers, or others, and get tips and tricks and tools that is suitable for you. So, how can governments promote NGOs? National, regional, and local politicians and authorities in Norway generally acknowledges the importance of NGOs and their activities, but they don't always know how to promote them. And Frivillighet Norge guide them in this in various ways, and these are always our main advices. We think that there should be a clear understanding of roles. NGOs can have many tasks, but it is important that they decide them themselves. And some tasks should be public responsibility, and the NGOs should not do these ones for free. It is also important that the public bodies don't compete with the NGOs for the same volunteers. Instead, they should help guide voluntary resources into the NGOs and partner with them in a good way. And of course, the NGOs need support. And what they need the most is, as everywhere, stable free funding and as accessible bureaucracy as possible, especially when it comes to reporting. Lastly, I've included a few principles for good cooperation with the NGO sector. These are from our partnership agreement with the Norwegian Association of Local and Regional Authorities, which is called KS in Norway. And with them, we have agreed on a set of values and principles, framework conditions, and measures that help strengthen the relationship between NGOs and local municipalities. Together, we also actively promote local and regional policies on this, and it is a very good way to build a democratic society bottom up. And The whole agreement platform is translated into English, and you can get it from me if you want. But these are, I think, the most important principles, and I will read them to you. The first one is that the voluntary sector is an autonomous, independent sector situated between the private and public sectors, and it should be recognized as equal. Second is that an active and vibrant voluntary sector is key to an active and vibrant local community. Third one is that promoting participation in voluntary organizations is key to ensuring the community participation of the inhabitants in the municipality. Fourth one is that the municipal and voluntary sectors have different but complementary roles in society. And fifth one is that the municipalities should develop and implement a comprehensive policy for voluntary organizations that promotes an active and thriving voluntary sector. And that, I think, is a good thing to end with. I'm very happy that you allowed me to speak to you today. I wish I was there to listen to all the other great people that were there, but I wish you all a very good conference. Thank you.
You leave to lunch break. I will invite for quick chat 3 persons, August, Eero, and Linda. You have not seen yet Linda today. So welcome on the stage and take the seats. Okay. So, I have few questions, but if you will have also some burning questions, you will be able to ask them also. They even don't need to share, right? So that's good. So, first question, mistakes. You all told good stories, but what are the mistakes? And now I'm also actually looking also on Linda. For our guests, I think I should introduce you because probably everyone else knows you in this room. And Linda is the person who was doing the coordination work when we had inflow of Ukrainian refugees, and she was coordinating all Latvian NGOs who stood up for this. And I remember when you told that you are leaving the organization, I was in the event with Riga City Council, and then they said, what will happen? Linda is leaving, what's happening? So, you know, you are really symbol of coordination. As Eero was saying, coordination is an important thing. So, but probably you also had some mistakes and learning points that you would like to share.
Well, thank you, Ines. And probably I should also say that today is my first day at the Civic Alliance of Latvia. So I'm extremely happy to, to join the day on this symbolic day, definitely. Going back to mistakes, I think first I would like to start though with successes, if you allow me for at least a couple of sentences. I think compared to the well-developed systems for many years that you described, Latvia is only on the way to develop anything like this. I'll try to put it mildly. But I think we have learned over the last almost 3 years many things. Also during COVID, of course, we started some learning, and thanks to you as well. But I think during the last 3 years, we have really learned a lot. And most importantly, we have learned to talk with one another. With the municipalities, with the government institutions, the NGOs themselves. We're not covering so many issues among ourselves anymore, even though we're competing for the money, obviously, for the resources. I remember several times then the call was out by the Society Integration Fund that is also there. And we just sat down and said, okay, I'm going to write this and I'm going to write that, and we'll see what happens. So we don't write the same thing. And that, I think, is a huge success story in itself. When we talk about the mistakes, I don't think that's really a mistake, but I think sometimes we put too much trust, put too much trust in the government institutions and the politicians. And we expect that some things are going to happen. I'll give one of the examples. In the beginning, the full-scale invasion in Latvia, when Ukrainians started to pour in, One Help Refugees, we collected almost 10,000 people who were ready to rent for free, to provide for free flat house or anything like this. But we had the feeling that we're not the ones to put the people together with the Ukrainians, because we thought that's a security issue. We haven't checked the room, we haven't checked the people, there might be anything behind it. So we collected that list and we gave it to the State Rescue Service, that I think was the correct thing to do. But then we expected that they will be quick and fast and manage all the situation. Well, unfortunately, they had so much work that it didn't work. Then we went to the municipalities and we said, hey, we look this list. We have this list. Ask the State Rescue Service, because we can't provide you with the information because there is a data regulation, obviously. So ask them, because we have this agreement. So by the end, when the whole system went through, I think probably 1/3 or a quarter of the people were still ready to give their rooms, which is understandable, I think, in a way. And then I think we have to think of how better prepare for these situations so we wouldn't run in these mistakes, as you call them. And probably, again, to see how we can develop better systems, but also to understand that the institutions, and that was not something that we got at the time, that the institutions would be ready to cooperate as fast as we expect them sometimes. And it's not their fault. They're overwhelmed the same way as we are. Sometimes they think that they're all powerful, and especially the State Rescue Service that has an extreme trust here in Latvia of the people, and we really think that they can do everything. And I think we imagine any firefighter in the situations you both described, because this is not done by volunteers here, but sometimes we have too much expectation from some of the services as well.
Thank you. And we have rescue service also here, and Ingun is hiding today in civilian clothes, but she is actually also from rescue service. So, Eero, about your mistakes.
Yeah, I think I mentioned a few already, especially during 2015, 2016, with the influx of migrants. I think especially when there's a large-scale disaster or a large-scale event, you will have two different crises in your hands. One is the actual crisis, and then it's the overwhelming number of people. It's a positive crisis, a big number of people who want to come and help with very limited skill sets or none whatsoever. And I think we learned from our mistakes in 2015, 2016. There were roughly 8,000 new volunteers during that 1 year period who came in, but there were many who were left out. But then when COVID came and we had our digital platforms and everything, we did a survey a year later to those people, and still 30% of them were never contacted, even though they registered. And I think, partly to continue on what you said, you really should concentrate on the things you have 100% effect on. If you rely on someone else to do the contacting, or you rely on, the authorities to do something, you can't make them do it. You really need to make the process as smooth as possible from your organization, and kind of like on those things that you can have an effect on. Now, when we did the volunteer survey, there were roughly 6-7% who felt they'd been never contacted, and then we followed up. They would be contacted several times, but they still, if their experience is that, it's fine. But and also for some people, contacting might mean something else. But kind of really to think through that, if you're willing to take a task of large-scale volunteering in a crisis situation, to make sure that you have yourself the resources to actually pull it through in a time of an actual crisis they're going on at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. August?
Yeah, mistakes or challenges. Over the time or before, okay, it's like twofold. So I would say, like, one thing which is really a challenge now is that people tend to really dive into doing all the volunteer work, and then they burn up the candle from both sides. So this is really a big challenge now, that people just really dive in, and then we don't have them anymore because they are just exhausted for and then we lose them, which is really bad thing to do, because we have really invested in people, and without the volunteers we are nothing. So we were unable to do what we provide. And one of the big mistakes over the time is not thinking about the psychological thing of search and rescue, that we have a lot of members that have some kind of a psychological trauma or something in rescues. You might have seen something bad, you might not be prepared for it or something like that, and that's something that was like a toxic masculinity that you stopped about, that you should not be talking about the feelings or something like that. And the search and rescue was mostly like just males or something like that, and you wouldn't talk about your feelings, and that was something that have been really something we have changed over the years. And now we are, I think one thing which we are trying to fix is getting the mental help for the people who need, because we all were losing a lot of people that just silently dropped out, because they when the call came, it was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that again.
Thank you. How can we build organizational resilience? What are your good practices, how you have been working with your staff in organizations, like you say, like psychological support, maybe any other recipes? Because here we have mostly organizations who work with volunteers and have this feeling of exhaustedness sometimes, right? So anyone can answer. So you don't support your people?
What we have been trying to do is make things like family friendly, make things fun, and in the like find the balance, which is really the hard thing, to find the balance, to be an emergency service and at the same time just a good teammate, or making a good team. I hope it answers somehow the question.
Yeah, I think on top of that, us adjusting our operating models, I think one key thing is to actually make sure that we provide the training for each and every volunteer, whether it's on security and safety, or if it's on psychosocial preparedness and so on and so forth. And then I think another part is as well that I had in the presentation just briefly is the participation of volunteers in everything we do at all levels. And it's kind of, it's so that we are actually, it's the volunteers planning how we want to do things, and then they feel more control over, their use of time and the operating models as well. So we're kind of, and at the same time it comes with a risk, because the Red Cross is a volunteer organization for sure, but our main job is not to create fun volunteer activities. Our main job is to help the most vulnerable people in the society, and sometimes we might have volunteer activities that just been going on for centuries and no one has been actually thinking if this has an impact in today's society anymore. But I think, then to have volunteers who really want to do something meaningful, everyone wants to do something meaningful, to come and evaluate themselves, so that it's easier for them to then adjust the way they operate and the things they do as well.
I think 3 things from my side. Just adding on what has been said already, I think one important thing is to keep people in the loop so they understand what is actually happening. And while there probably seems to be not so huge or important thing to carry one thing from this point A to point B, but why it is important. The other thing is, and that is an example that was mentioned by the minister, from my personal experience as well from the Song and Dance Festival, and every volunteer out of all 1,000 people was so happy about the t-shirt that you can show on daily basis that you are part of this huge thing, that you made it happen. And I see it also in Want to Help Refugees, that people are so happy that they have whatever gadget that is, or t-shirt or whatever, that they can show that they are part of something, that they actually have done something. And the third thing is simple as that. I think always say thank you in a million ways you can, whatever that would be, an activity, an email, or an SMS, or whatever the thing is, always, always, always. And again, value what your people are doing for you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, because I think we all have experienced, as you say, that there are so many volunteers sometimes, right, that we cannot even manage them. And have you tried at some moment say them stop volunteering or stop coming? No? How do you deal with that?
In a way, I give a bit of a different example. Blood donation, which is a very concrete volunteer task. I'm sure there's a lot of blood donors here as well, but it's a very, you're giving something physically of yourself. So it's if that's not volunteering, I don't know what is. But when there is for example, a mass casualty event, bridge collapses or something, there's a lot of people who think that now it's my time to come and donate blood. But the blood supply doesn't work that way. You need to have the reserves, and then you kind of need to have those fields. It's a very sophisticated logistical experience. And then we've been trying to build, we're the only provider of blood service in Finland, so we've been trying to build the relationship with our blood donors so that they understand that it's actually so much more beneficial for the patient and for the people that we are aiming to help, that you come at a scheduled time when it's actually, also better for your health. You don't come too often, but also, to balance those. But it hasn't happened overnight. Still, when something happens, there's thousands of people who say that, okay, now here's my blood, but that would have worked if they would have come 2 weeks before that mass casualty event, but clearly they didn't know about that. But it's as you said, keeping people in the loop and explaining how the system works, and then thanking them and telling how it works is I think is a very crucial part there. I think volunteering is it can be a bit tricky because in professional life we have laws that say how many hours you're able to work, and then you will be prosecuted as a company if you exceed those limits. But in volunteering we don't have a law for that. You don't have those maximum efforts. But I think any responsible organization will make sure that their volunteers don't that they have the support that they need, and also that they don't burn themselves out.
Let me continue with a little bit provocative question. So, in Latvia, in 2022, we experienced such situation that new NGOs were developed to support refugees. So, like Tavi, draugi, entrepreneurs made their own NGOs. They didn't support existing NGOs. And I think it was August who was talking about building that daily trust to organizations. So how do you deal with that, and what is your experience? How we can build trust that that volunteers come to existing NGOs and don't establish their own? How we can be more open to volunteers?
I think it's all about communication, but I think there are times when there is a need for a new organization, and that's okay, especially in our situation, and we can see from the place where we are what it has become in almost 3 years, and I think all of us feel proud just to be here. But of course, it is very important that the people come to the existing initiatives and support existing initiatives. And I think since my background is communication, it's all about communication, and it's about explaining what you do and what value does it make, and how you can be also valuable for what you would be doing in this organization. And I think the NGOs in Latvia are very happy about what they're doing, but they are not so good in telling about the good that they're doing, and I think we have a lot of room for improvement in that.
Yeah, I think also, I think the NGOs who are then, don't get new volunteers in, or, the people don't want to come and want to go to new NGOs, I totally agree. We need more organizations, probably more NGOs. Quite often, I noticed during Ukraine, in many countries, I don't know Latvian specifics, but in many countries there were different companies or organizations who established new foundations or NGOs, thinking it's so simple. And then a while later, they noticed that it's not as easy as they thought, that, to give a very simple answer to a very complex problem. But I think our trust is built every single day by the local branches and the 64,000 members we have in them. If I look at the media reports, it's all about that local branch doing something locally and kind of like showing how we live out our values. And then I also think, we build trust by constantly evaluating our operation models and ways of volunteering and updating them to be relevant today. I think people want to engage in something they find meaningful, they find it fun, they find it useful, and then it's us updating our operational models and kind of like the way to join the Red Cross, for example, in order to keep us alive and active.
Yeah, building the trust. So on like the level that I work in, like a team, it's mostly like knowing the members and then building the trust between the emergency services is just by exercising and showing your professionalism and showing that you know the skill set that you're doing, and that's how we build trust, and by that trust that we get the trust from the population. So we are highly trusted by the Icelandic population, and the trust is really important for us because of how we raise our funding for everything. So, yeah.
Thank you. Any burning question? If not, I will ask you personally. You have been talking so much about others, about volunteers, about your organizations. What would you say as a person, what is your personal main takeaway in this life, what you do as a also volunteer actually, right? And what would you give as one, I don't know, good advice to those people sitting here, also personally as human beings? So anyone can start. You don't think about yourselves personally. We must think about ourselves more, right? So what would be your personal main learning point as volunteer, as person doing this job, and what advice would you give to others?
I can start maybe, because I want to share my story, how I started to be a volunteer, because it's food related, and I think we're all into food thinking a little bit by now. I joined the volunteer work when I was in the university, the first course, because the people in my course, they were organizing a youth seminar for the people from other countries, and that was mid-90s, and it sounded so much fun, and I said, you know, I can help. And I said, the only thing they need is if you could be cooking the breakfasts and the dinners for the people. I'm not good in cooking. I said, of course I will. So the next couple of weeks, and we had almost no money. So the next couple of weeks, what I have been doing is I have been calling all the companies and saying, you know, we have absolutely everything, but we don't have tomatoes. Would you donate some? So finally, I succeeded with the breakfast, and that's how I started my volunteer work. And I think it is a lot about values and society and helping people, but it's also about yourself. It's about having fun sometimes. And if you don't ever have fun as being a volunteer, or just you said having the comrades you can share with, then I think it's not worth it to be a volunteer as well, because you get a burnout and you're unhappy in the end in all what you're doing. So I think that if the one takeaway from me would be, it's probably not good to join if you're not completely sure about your skills, but sometimes it's worth it.
Thank you so much, Linda.
So like my personal experience, so being in a search and rescue can be and volunteering that can be quite stressful, and you might be in like at home, and then you're somewhere with someone you don't, you probably know them, but you like maybe not like best friends or something like that, and it can be really stressful. In a stressful area is that just being with someone, and you may be somewhere far away, and it's bad weather and you're stuck in a vehicle or something like that. You have to be with other person, and it's really hard to, or probably maybe a skill to be with people, and you have to be professional and at the same time like talk, and you tolerating other people. Some people don't, some do, and if you can't tolerate everyone, you maybe not be not in the correct thing to do, to be in a volunteer service or something like that, because it's I'm not sure how to explain this. You might be someone who is has a other view of everything than you, but that's just fine. It's okay, and you just have to tolerate that, and you just have to listen and just listen to people and think that it's okay to have other views on things, and that's fine. And the people who don't have that skill set, they tend to stop really quickly or burn out really quickly. It's like, this is not for me, or And then in the end, they are the people and not the team.
I joined the Red Cross for very selfish reasons. I wanted to be a doctor. I knew at the age of 13 I'm going to be a doctor, and then I turned out to be a lawyer, so it didn't really go that well. But I'm a medical lawyer by background, so but at the same time, I think, through volunteering, I also realized that you can't save the world, but you can really save someone else's world and their day, and just one individual at a time instead of trying to solve all the problems of the world. And that's the power of humanity, and that's the power of volunteering.
Thank you so much. And I think now we all deserve a lunch break, right? We will meet you here in this room in 1 hour, and then you will have fantastic working groups where you will be able to engage more actively, and also some practical stories after that. So in 1 hour, back here in this room. And thank you to our speakers.